Sneako, welcome to the gang, I guess.
Panel.
Yeah.
Not a gang. I'm not in a gang with Nick. I'll take that back.
I'm in a gang with Nick.
You are.
See, I'm in God's gang with Nick and Ye.
Jesus gang.
I'm glad that you're back. Well, you guys, AD will agree with you on that. He's a big God guy.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm glad that Sneako is here because this was all his plan. I think that the whole theme here is basically Sneako saying that Nick Fuentes should be normalized and treated like a part of acceptable society, and that's what we're trying to hash out today.
He should be. And I think now that Ye's getting canceled and that he just signed with Parlay is proving the fact that if you talk about a specific group, that you will automatically be deplatformed. And you saw, I don't know if you talk about what happened with Nori, but Nori went on every fucking radio show apologizing for someone else's comments because all Ye said was he's jealous of Jewish power. That's as far as it went. And then even if someone's
that's a
on
nice
your
view
platform,
of what he said. He actually said something like way more aggressive than that.
Yeah, but it was all because of the George Floyd comments.
That too. I think like the Jews stuff almost got pushed to the background in favor of people really trying to cancel him for the George Floyd shit.
Nah, hell nah.
No,
I think the Jewish stuff was
100%.
definitely like the prominent issue there, right?
I think they're both issues, but I just felt like I saw a lot more people honing in on the George Floyd shit.
I've never seen anybody, like quote unquote, get mass canceled for being quote unquote racist, right? In terms of somebody black right now, I believe that Kanye, especially like this morning with Hot 97, they brought him on to like address like his statements towards like like the quote unquote like Jews, right? Not right, but no here, right? But look at this though, again. But the main issue was Kanye was quote unquote anti-Semitic, and he got canceled for that. And then Kanye went on Drinks Champ and pretty much doubled down on his takes on Jews, and that's what I think the issue is, bro. And
I don't think Kanye's like interview on Drinks Champs was necessarily anti-Semitic. He wasn't speaking hate. He was more so just speaking on what is. It's like you can't say what's happening when you speak on certain people, and not that it's like let me just continue.
Again, like me personally, I don't think that Revolt or like IG or like YouTube is out here canceling Kanye because he said some racist shit.
Well, we don't know if the Drink Champs interview was removed because of Revolt making the decision or YouTube deciding to remove it. Although if YouTube might have said we're gonna remove it if you don't remove it, or Revolt might have just done it on their own accord.
Yeah,
Bro, YouTube is not going to give you a warning and say, you better remove it or we're going to remove it. YouTube's just going to remove it. And Revolt probably wouldn't have done it on their own record because they didn't do the Kanye interview, not anticipating Kanye was going to say some crazy shit. Like, they knew what the fuck they was getting into. What are you talking about, Adam?
it's probably Nori's publicist, his manager called him up and
private
said,
in it though.
But Ye was wilding.
Yeah.
Ye was talking crazy about the Jewish power. So what you need to do to protect yourself in your bank account right now is delete the video and go on every single radio show and apologize, or else they're going to come after everything and all your money. And so he did that. He said, okay, it's actually not worth it. I don't care what Ye said. I'm sorry. I just want to keep my bank account, and I don't want to go on a no-fly list because of something that Ye said.
Well, it is weird if you're Nori and Kanye just start saying like, well, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. And I mean, you're not the fucking coroner. Like, what do you know? Like how is Nori supposed to respond to that?
Stick to the science of it, though.
Yeah.
They said that he lost his life because of a lack of oxygen.
But does Nori have these facts memorized? Like, that's why it's awkward. And that's why people say that we shouldn't platform people like Nick Fuentes.
He's too smart.
Because they're just going to say some random shit and we're just going to go along with it. But the more specific accusation about Nick is that he is basically bundling up his white supremacist ideas in this nice sports coat and everything, and that he acts real cool. Hey, I love black art. Yeah, Nas is cool. And that's what I like. That's what people are gonna fucking destroy me for, is if I am not perceived as being aggressive enough towards Nick.
And I seen some shit today, and I said, you know what? I usually don't do my homework and shit like that. I seen.
See, that was very smart on Adam's end to point that out there, right there, to make the audience aware of that, so that it would prevent him from having to do so. That was a smart move.
Some shit today that made me disgusted as an African American.
Well,
today.
lay it out there, AD.
All right. So for one, you said you never seen black people jog before.
Ahmaud Arbery. Nah,
you were
that's not
disgusted
funny.
by that. Well, white people
by that
jogging is a white people activity.
No. But in the sense of Ahmaud Arbery, you know what I'm saying? The way he.
See, Sneako's just so quick to defend Nick. Like, let Nick speak. Let Nick defend his own statements. Let Nick substantiate his own statements. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Sneako? How do you know what the fuck was going on in his head?
Lost his life because jogging in a neighborhood, and then some, you know what they did to him. That's fucked up. You know what I'm saying? I'm a black person. I don't look like I jog, but I jog. You know what I mean? Like,
come on, where do you?
Man, that nigga lying. Y'all know damn well that nigga don't be out. Man, that man ain't out here jogging, man. You ain't got to prep for the cameras.
You jog in the streets.
Nigga, no, I don't live in the streets anymore. I moved out the streets, so I jog in the.
It's like, no, I'm lying. He probably jog. He looks like a fairly athletic, big homie. Not big homie in terms of hierarchy, but size.
Nice neighborhood.
Well, yeah, the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at the specifics of the case, though, and that's a little bit of old news, so I may be a little fuzzy on the details, but he was jogging a long way from where he lived. He was jogging in boots. You know, you can jog, but usually jog in sneakers. You jog.
See, okay, this is what I don't understand right here. He was jogging a long way from home. Isn't that the point of jogging? Isn't that what people do when they jog? They jog out of their immediate vicinity. Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe people do just regularly jog in their own neighborhoods and just keep going in circles and shit. But I'm pretty sure people jog for miles.
Jog in gym shoes. You don't jog in boots. And there was a series of break-ins reported in the area too. And he was caught on camera on that construction site. And I remember at the time, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire was like, this is just something that guys do. We go in, we climb the fence, we jump in, and we walk around construction sites to see. And it's like, okay, so he's in boots. He's miles from.
See, okay, Nick brought up the break-ins like that had anything to do with Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, if he wasn't an immediate suspect, or if he wasn't tied to the break-ins in any way, shape, or form, the fact that he brought them up renders the point null, void, and meaningless. Why did you bring that up if he had nothing to do with the break-ins? That makes absolutely no point. He's trying to paint a specific image to make it seem like those white men that did what they did had some substantiate reason for doing what they did, and that's incorrect.
From his house, he's jogging, he's on the construction site, there's burglaries in the area. Now, I'll admit, the way they pulled a gun on him, I would probably say that.
I'm pretty sure it was damn near broad daylight, right? Like, he's talking about those burglaries in the area. Like, if he's jogging and he has absolutely nothing on him, what did he steal? Like isn't a burglary when you break and enter into somebody's home and steal prized possessions? Like, come on now, what the fuck was he gonna do? Carry a TV on his back? Like, what are you talking about, Nick? Make it make sense.
That was probably over the line, and they got charged for that. I would say, is that a first degree murder? No. What do you call that? I'm not like a lawyer. I don't know what you would call that. But the point is, they try to make it out like this was the new Ku Klux Klan. The most you could say about it is the guys were overzealous about it.
What? He says the most you can say about it is the guys were overzealous about it. Ahmaud Arbery lost his life. But the most you can say is the guys that the white guys were overzealous, as Nick Fuentes puts it, they were overzealous about it. Ahmaud lost his life. What is he talking about here?
Yeah, but a guy ended up losing his life at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I think that for
technically jogging.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you can't argue if all those facts.
Thank you. At the end of the day, like the stuff that Nick is saying is fucking pointless, because after the fact that the situation already happened, we have the facts and we know we had nothing to do with the fucking burglaries. And at the end of the day, the man lost his life. So you can't say it as if that the white guys just slightly went too far. Like, if it would have been vice versa, I don't think he'd have that same opinion. But let us continue. Let us carry on.
It's true of a guy fucking far from home jogging in work boots. That is pretty out of the ordinary. I think that the main issue people had with it was just the amount of force that those guys demonstrated and how comfortable they seemed.
Plus, essentially, those guys took the law into their own hands. Okay, if there's burglaries going on in the neighborhood or something, whatever it may be is going on, I'm pretty sure the law, the the duty to enforce law should be left to law enforcement. That's why we have law enforcement, right? Those white guys were not law enforcement.
To be with like basically taking the law into their own hands.
Yeah, and like I said, should they have pulled a gun on him? Like I said, I think that was inappropriate. But they try to expand this because that preceded the George Floyd thing by a few months. They try to turn that into there's a systemic white supremacy problem among the police, and it's like that's where you draw the line. Is this sort of like a bad situation, or does this represent this horrible undercurrent? I think if anything, it's quite the opposite. I think if anything, blacks get treated better than white people.
Hell no.
What? Nick Fuentes has lost his fucking mind. He said, if anything, black get treated better than white people. What substantial proof do you have for that statement? Like, what? I don't even think white people would believe that shit. Like, there's a phrase for there's a phrase for this. The phrase white privilege it was created for a reason. It's because you guys have it better than black people. You guys have it better than any other race. You guys have it better than Asians, Latinas. Like, come on, man. I'm not sitting here saying that black people need this or that, or we have it so bad. No, we can fend for ourselves. We can get through whatever the fuck that we're going through. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that systematically white people have the advantage. Let's not ignore the facts. Like, I don't know how Nick Fuentes is so anti-Jew and anti-liberal when 90% of the liberals are white men. I'm pretty sure Jews are white, right? I mean, when Kanye said they were black, ain't nobody agree with him, so they're white, right? So what's he talking about? Let us continue.
Listen,
absolutely.
I lived in some of these. I lived in Compton almost my whole life, and the way the police used to treat me and my friends was terrible, bro. And like,
plus I can guarantee you guys, Nick Fuentes is a guy that was never subjected to like police brutality growing up or any of that, any situations similar to those. This is why he's speaking from his own personal experience and not, objectively from what actually goes on. He's speaking subjectively.
Not by the police. I'm talking about
Let me stand corrected.
By the university. I'm talking about by the media, by the institution.
Never mind.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
nah, I disagree with that as well too. I feel like now we're getting a lot of light shed on things because of social media and people having more voices than they usually have. But before, a lot of shit used to get swept under the rug. Like where I come from, I've seen all type of, injustice that people don't even get to talk about. I got a lot of homeboys behind bars for shit that they didn't do. You know what I mean? Like one of my earliest memories that I could tell you about, I remember I was in a neighborhood one time and I got pulled over. And the police, they were asking me, oh, where you from and everything. They're checking my tattoos and stuff like that. I tell them, oh, nothing, whatever it is, what it is. The fucking, I don't know if it's the chief or whoever it was that pulled me over. He just leaves me for like 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? In a bad neighborhood. And when he comes back, he smiles at me and my key is bent. I can't even drive my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want me to get hurt when I was just, going to work.
That's your example of, He left. Why is the neighborhood bad?
What do you mean?
Who's in the neighborhood?
We have
is that a white neighborhood?
No, it's not a white neighborhood.
He bent the key.
Oh, I see. He bent.
Where I couldn't start my car. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think though that I guess blacks are, treated better in this country?
Or why is it so hard to believe that there are racist police officers?
I'm not saying there aren't racist.
It's just the idea that the whole institution is white supremacist is way over the line.
That,
yeah. No.
That's kept to keep people brainwashed and yelling about stupid shit.
Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG in which you write your own story.
Quarantine so that they focus on non-problems instead of what's really going on.
No, but
Black Lives Matter didn't solve anything, and they told us to focus on this one instance of George Floyd. So maybe Ye was wrong talking about the fentanyl. I'm not sure, but the whole idea of it was that George Floyd was just used as an example to make everybody outraged, and it worked. And we didn't solve anything.
Yeah, the whole Black Lives Matter movement. It was initially supposed to be something great for Black people, but it got hijacked by the alphabet community. And it was used for other purposes. It didn't really, y'all tell me what BLM did for Black people. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I'm unaware. But as far as I know, it did a lot more for the LGBT and the drag queen community, the transgender community, than it did for Black people, right? All right, then. So let us continue.
with it. $85 million went nowhere, and the neighborhoods that they were trying to protect are worse now.
Well, that definitely seems like it's true. Yeah.
No, but
yeah, and the thing is, I'm not like a big cheerleader for the cops or anything. I'm not like a Blue Lives Matter guy by any stretch. I'm not by any stretch a person that's going to say there's no, because there's cops that are assholes to black people and white people. And I think the cops as an institution are totally corrupt. When I say that, like George Floyd's a perfect example. Here's a guy who is a criminal. Here's a guy who is dealing drugs. He's got a long rap sheet. He's a burglar. And the guy clearly died from fentanyl. The autopsy report in that county said that he died of a heart attack. And he had all these drugs in the system. He not only had fentanyl, but also had methamphetamine.
For the record, I'm pretty sure there was another autopsy that was done after that report, but let us continue.
In the system.
But the
So it's not really-
coroner said
the coroner
that
didn't
he
say
died
that.
from
He
the
died
knee on his neck,
From the
right?
knee on his neck.
Autopsy
like
said it was a
oxygen.
heart attack. Autopsy said it was a heart attack.
Is there a disagreement between the
Yeah.
autopsy and the coroner?
I believe there were 2 autopsies performed. I think there was one that was performed by the county and one that was performed by somebody else. But yeah, there was a dispute about that. And they did find drugs in the system. So, and in any case,
But what does drugs have to do with the situation of why he got arrested in the first place?
he died from he got arrested because he was trying to pass a counterfeit bill. So he was in the process of committing a crime. And then he was tweaking out because he was high. And then he was in this unfortunate position where, you're high and probably having some kind of heart attack or some kind of medical episode while you're in the process of an arrest.
Well, if you can't breathe and you're screaming out, "Mommy," you know what I'm saying, and you're saying that you can't breathe, and they keep putting force on him. I mean,
He was saying he couldn't breathe before he was on the ground.
That's cap.
He was saying he couldn't breathe before they were trying to get him into the cop car, and he was saying.
Bro, let us continue.
And I understand what you're saying, but the problem is we start in the middle of the story where you got a guy who's like a criminal, you got a guy who's in the process of committing a crime, and he's high, and people want to start the story where he's on the ground and say, oh, well, they shouldn't have done this technique or whatever. And it sort of ignores the fact that, why do you have so much exposure between the police and black people? It's because black people are committing the majority of the violent crime. That's the real problem. If they had a crime rate similar to white people, there'd be a lot fewer incidences overall of police.
I mean, I don't fuck with Nick, but I do have to agree with him on that point. They were just on the point of the basis it would be a lot fewer instances for something to even go wrong. If us as a community, we didn't commit so much crime, but then why we commit so much crime, that leads to another conversation as a systematic whatever, and basically personal situations. Everybody's situation is different. Some people have to do that to survive, I guess, but let us continue.
Involved or cop involved shootings of black people or negative situations like that. So that's always the issue.
When I listen to Nick, I have a hard time trying to dissect it because I consider myself a truthful person. So when I listen to what he's saying, it's like I think Nick leads with statistics and facts a lot of time. And that's the problem, is that we're meant to think like people like him are bad and we're supposed to push back. And if you don't push back, you are going to get in trouble uploading this video. Part of the reason I got a couple strikes.
I don't give a fuck about the pushback and everything.
No, but I just want to finish the point. Like you're supposed to, or else like that was part of the reason I was terminated on YouTube. Was I was listening to Nick and I was laughing and I wasn't disagreeing, but he could be on Destiny's channel or he could be on other people's channel who disagree with him and they keep you on. And I think that should show. But when I listen to him, and Adam, you called him a white supremacist earlier.
Well, I'm not name calling at all. I'm just trying to get him to be upfront about his
but you said that you said that Nick is a white supremacist. I'm curious to like what he said.
The whole white supremacist concept is odd to me. Like, because okay, let's talk about supremacy on a physical level and on a mental level. Physically, let's talk genetically, physically, and mental, right? Genetically, white people are inferior. I don't say that as it's not hate speech, it's not me hating on white people. I'm cool white people. I ain't got no problem with white people and whatnot. It's a lot of good white people that's been in my life, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of bad people that's been in my life. But strictly on a genetic level, right? Why is it that white people cannot reproduce themselves without any other race but themselves? For instance, if a white person has intercourse with a black person, they create a black baby. If a white person has intercourse with an Asian person, they create an Asian baby. If a white person has intercourse with a Latino person, they create a Latino person. So how are you superior genetically? Not that they said that they were, this is just the point I'm making, but how are you superior genetically if you can't reproduce with you can't reproduce your own kind with any other race when every other race can reproduce their kind with your race? Doesn't that make you inferior? I'm just asking the question. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Then we go to physically, right? You can literally name any sport. Black people dominated it. Why? It's the reason why Serena Williams has dominated the tennis game for however long, and that's just one woman. It's the reason why LeBron, MJ, they dominate the whole history of the NBA, and those are just two people. It's the reason why, like, we can go on and on and on. The list goes on, but we can go Tiger Woods. The list goes on. Physically, it seems like black people may be superior. I'm just saying. I'm just observing the facts. I'm not, I'm just observing the facts. And then what? Mentally, on a range from birth to the age of 5, black people have the highest IQ of any other race, of any race. It's not debatable. It's literally a fact. So where the supremacy lies, I don't know. Let us continue.
Specifically, that makes you think that?
Well, I did hear leaked audio of you comparing a white woman having sex with a dog to having sex with a black man, and saying that it was basically the same level of degeneracy. And that was like leaked audio. So I felt like that was kind of telling about
what? This man compared bestiality to interracial sex, and like, what? That's nowhere near the same level of degeneracy. Bestiality is absolutely disgusting, absolutely unacceptable, and there's no procreation that could result from that, so it could not possibly be categorized in the same level of degeneracy. Make it make sense, Nick, but let Nick smack his rebuttal, though. You feel me? I ain't even hear it yet, so maybe he might prove me wrong, whatever he says, or maybe it was a joke, whatever it may be. Let's see.
What you might say behind the scenes.
Yeah, and
maybe that was a joke?
Well, no, I think...
This is what I don't like. Sneako, shut up, bro. Let him speak. You talking about maybe it was a joke? Why are you speaking for him? He's speaking directly to Nick Fuentes about and asking him to substantiate something that he said. Why are you speaking, Sneako? Maybe it was a joke. Why are you so quick to defend this man? Like, I don't understand that, man. And I'm not hating on Sneako or none of that. It's just he's not being objective here. He's not willing to throw Nick any types of rebuttal. He's not willing to challenge his thought process. It seems as if Nick and Sneako came into this interview or conversation already with an aligned agenda. You know what I'm saying? But what do I know? May we continue?
I mean, I can explain
It didn't sound like a joke.
Well, hang on. I can explain the context of that. And the thing is, I'm going to answer that. But first, I want to say the better question is, because I saw your stream yesterday, full disclosure, Adam, on Twitch, where you went to the SPLC, which is an advocacy group.
And I will acknowledge that the SPLC has deemed a lot of people and different podcasts that I enjoy, like basically hate groups. So I don't put a lot of faith in their opinion off rip. So I did go there to get some information on stream. Well, but I'm not saying that I deem them a respectable organization.
Well, and that's fair enough, but I'm saying the point is, and this is the question that should be asked about that, they're advocates. That's an advocacy group, and they're paid to mine. I've been doing streaming for 6 years. I produce thousands and thousands of hours of content. They're paid to mine, the 10 or 15 worst things, 10-second. Like, let me ask you, you don't know the circumstances surrounding that clip, but it was provided there for you in a 10-second bite for you to get a certain impression of me. And that clip is from 5 or 6 years ago. I know you might say, well, it doesn't matter how old it is.
Why is he talking so much? Just substantiate the statement. Damn.
Because the content is so offensive. But it sort of begs a certain question, which is, why does this exist? Who's paying for this? To what end? Why is the SPLC? Because at the time, I'm an 18-year-old kid. The circumstances about that is I was at a job training, and it was like 3 a.m. It's late at night. It was for a political thing. And I was saying that I'm against race mixing. I think that people should marry their own kind. I want a white wife. That's a value that I have. My race matters to me. My identity matters to me. I want my kids to look like me. I want my grandkids to look like me.
Okay. I gotta be objective here. Obviously, I mean, he might sound racist. He might sound white supremacist right here, but I have to agree with Nick on here. I'm not necessarily a fan for race mixing either. I think black people should have kids with black people. I think white people should have kids with white people. I think Latinas should have kids with Latinas. Now, as interracial, there's a lot of people that have been good. There's a lot of good leaders we've gotten from interracial intercourse. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not completely against it. I don't care what people do when they're behind their closed doors. I don't care what people do in their bedroom. But me personally, I prefer a black woman because I'm a black man. And I think that you don't help your I don't want to say this like all races are against each other, but you don't help your people by reproducing with, well, actually, I mean, we do because we have the dominant gene. So if any race, black, Latino, white, like I was just saying earlier, reproduces white people, then you get a black Latino or black Latino or Asian kid. You know what I'm saying? So it's really white people that get the downside, the short end of the straw, because they literally have to reproduce with white people to get white children.
I think that's a positive value that I think other people should share as well. I don't judge people that are mixed race. I mean, some people say I'm mixed race. My dad's half Mexican. My mom's Italian. Some people would say that's mixed race. Obviously, I don't hate people that are mixed race or people that race mix, but it's just.
So he's just completely contradicting himself then at this point. Like if you're, okay.
It's just a value for me. And anyway, so I was explaining that. And this girl picks up her phone because I'm saying something that's because you can't be against race mixing, even though everybody was and every race other than whites still is.
Even black people say that all the time. I want to have black kids. I want to raise a black family.
No.
I'm black.
Black people definitely say that all the time, as I just said that.
I'm proud. If black people say that, nobody blinks an eye. But when Nick says it, people are automatically assuming that it's something racist.
No.
And I think in that context, I think that could be a joke. And I think that if you record any white kid's Call of Duty lobby when they're 18 years old, or you record anybody at 3 a.m. when they're not knowing, I've made jokes like that. I make jokes about every single race. It doesn't mean that.
Sneako is right here. Like, yes, black people say it too. We need to reproduce with black people and whatnot. But the fact that he's just so like, damn, he is on Nick's meat. Like, damn, Nick didn't even get to finish defending himself. Nick didn't even get to finish substantiating his own statements before Nico could just hop in and da-da-da. But I mean, he's not right. He's not wrong. He's definitely right. I mean, when black people say it, nobody bats an eye. If a white guy says it, it sounds kind of racist. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm not saying it is though. It's definitely not. I think every race should reproduce their own race. I think it makes it easier because there's a heritage behind it and you guys share the same culture. So it's easier to raise a family under the same foundation and beliefs. So that's the only reason I would say that. I don't know what Nick's specific reasons are, but I'm going to assume that they're similar to mine. Give him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
You're a racist person, but nowadays you have to be very careful at any moment because you never know when someone's going to record it.
Well, wait, but so the point is I'm saying like, so that's the part that wasn't recorded is I'm saying I'm against race mixing. Well, she sees me saying something that you're not supposed to say and says, I'm going to cancel this guy. So she gets her phone out and starts recording and says, hey, Nick, so do you think that having sex with a black guy is the same as having sex with a dog? So I didn't say that. Those were not my words. I was saying I'm against race mixing. She gets the phone out and frames it that way. And I said, no. And Adam, you saw the clip. I said, no, it's not the same. I said, but they both be degenerate. I said, they both be wrong. And then the same way that I would say, yeah, incest is wrong. Is incest the same as bestiality? No.
See, this is where it's a semantics thing. It's a difference when you say it's, you can find it degenerate, but it's not the same level of degeneracy. You can't say it's the same level of degeneracy as bestiality. That's a whole different level. Like, come on now. But then again, I guess right is right and wrong is wrong. And there's no limits to what it is. There's no levels to it. If you want to look at it like there's a hard line there and there's no gray, but maybe continue.
Is rape the same as bestiality? These are all things which I would consider wrong. Yeah, but
Sneako just hops on board.
You could say they're both degenerate, but they're not the same levels of degeneracy. Like you can't compare grape to bestiality. I mean, you can't compare grape and bestiality to interracial intercourse. Like, come on, that doesn't make sense. You can make the argument that interracial intercourse is degenerate and hey, maybe it is, but it's not the same level as bestiality and grape. Like, come on, man.
And it's basically like, oh yeah, it's fucked up.
I heard him explain this whole thing before.
But you think race mixing is bad?
I don't think race mixing is bad, but I respect his opinion to think
And
that
then what's weird here is like Sneako. Matter of fact, I just peeped that. What's weird here is Sneako's vouching for him so much and defending him, but isn't Sneako mixed race? Isn't he the product of interracial intercourse? Like Sneako, you wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for interracial intercourse. So he's basically speaking against your whole existence, and you're over here sitting, yes, Nick, preach. Doesn't make sense to me. Let us continue.
he wants to further the white race and have white kids.
See,
I'm not going to judge what he wants to do.
I would have thought in any other timeline that Nick saying like, oh, white people should just be with other white people, I would have thought that would be a super controversial statement, but it's hard for me to really take it that controversially when we've had people like Tariq Nasheed on here who clearly says the same thing about black people. Kevin Samuels basically said the same thing about black people.
People say that all the time. That's
valid facts, valid point there, Adam. I gotta get a man credit where it's due. You know what I'm saying? We as black people say that shit all the time because I mean it's just a difference in culture. You can raise a kid through interracial relationships, but there's just such a big difference in culture, and it creates such a problem for the child's identity, or them finding their own self-identity. And it's two black Catholic people, two African black Catholic people. It's easy. It's an easy way to identify yourself because you have the same ethnicity, you have the same cultural upbringing, you have the same mindset, essentially, right? I mean, okay, I can't say mindset, but you guys know what the fuck I'm trying to say.
The problem wasn't that.
White people don't say that. White people are not allowed to say that.
He just said it.
Well, that's why he's canceled. He's on a no-fly list.
It's just hard for me to really take issue with him saying that.
I don't understand this whole like no-fly list and removing banks and whatnot. I might not agree with all the things that Nick Fuentes says, and I don't know what even got him canceled, but I don't agree with like the removal of people's bank accounts and no-fly list. Like, what is that? They're acting like he's a terrorist. Like he's not a harm to the airline. Like I don't understand that when you can just remove a person's whole existence. Essentially, how are you supposed to get around without a bank account? How are you supposed to there's ways around that shit, but come on, that's not what you say. Like what does freedom of speech even mean at that point? If what you say can get you banned from taking flights, can get you banned from having a bank account, what is freedom of speech at that point? Right. And I don't know. Once again, I don't know what Nick Fuentes said. I don't know how controversial it was. I don't know how crazy whatever his statement may have been. I'm not aware myself. I might do that research after this live, but whatever he said shouldn't warrant that he loses all his bank accounts and can't fly. That's weird. That's weird. That's where I think there's like an imbalance of power there.
When I feel like there's so many people of other races who basically say the same thing publicly and aren't really like held in any kind of negative light for it.
I think that's why Nick was saying that it's easier to be a minority nowadays. I think when he talks about that, he's talking about freedom of speech. I think I'm a protected class, being Asian, black, and white. I'm able to talk about a lot of things and make jokes that Nick is not capable of. But even then, you could still tote the line and get canceled, as we've both been terminated.
Right.
But I still haven't seen you. I disagree. I've heard Destiny bring up that statement since. I'm curious to what do you think Nick has said that's made you think he's a white supremacist? Besides that,
what about the black people's hands should be cut off at the airport?
Oh, well,
what? Never mind. Now I get it.
Why
I don't mean that.
Funny?
Like what? How? In what context?
Because it was part of a joke. It's part of because I'm talking about how
And that's actually that's actually a harsh thing to say, knowing that black people had a history of getting their hands cut off when they didn't pick enough crops on the plantation. And then they created like chocolate hands and shit to
There was this development where I think it was American Airlines or one of the big airlines said that gay men it's not just gay men. It says that men can wear the girls' flight attendant uniform and the girls can wear the male flight attendant uniform. And I said, you look at these videos from World Star or whatever on social media of black people fighting on planes. And, and I don't know, I mean, you're going to pretend this doesn't exist, like these videos of black people fighting everywhere at Disney World, at the airport.
Everybody.
Why is he saying that? What the fuck? Why is he saying that everybody doesn't fight? Why is he saying that it's just black people that fight? Like every airport fight has been a black person. Like every controversial fight video you see on the internet is a black person. Don't get me wrong, the majority probably are. The majority of the videos probably are. But why you can't make it seem like it's just a black thing? Like, come on, dude. Like, it's not just like, come on, man.
At restaurants. What's that?
Everybody fights everywhere.
Not like that. Not.
I just seen a white nigga hit somebody, bam, in the back of the head on a plane.
Yeah, come on, Nick.
It happens
There-
everywhere.
yeah, it's not to say that- it's not to
wait a
say
minute,
that
it's
black
not-
people
it's
are the
not
only
just-
people-
It's not just black
Okay.
people. Everybody fights everywhere.
So you're into. I mean, listen,
It's not no denial. It's the truth.
It is denial. It is
It's-
denial. To
so
say
you're
that
saying
that's
only-
not like
so
a
you're
black
saying only
phenomenon.
black people fight at Disneyland and fight in airports and airlines.
I'm saying that
You a
when I go on
statistics guy,
social,
you with the truth, not what you see on social media. Where's the facts? I can show you videos.
Right, his facts for what I see on social media is Nick. I thought you were a statistician. Where are the statistics? Where are where is the empirical proof?
Those right now, where white people, black people, Mexican people, Asian people, everybody's fighting everywhere. That-
yeah,
it really.
okay. I know everybody fights, but I'm just saying what I
So
see
why
on social media.
Why single out?
It happens
black
more
people?
with black people. It happens way more with black people.
See, I came up to the same conclusion before I even knew Nick when they were talking about the stop.
To be honest, I have to do I don't agree with Nick, but I do partially agree with Nick because it definitely does happen way more often with black people. We're not gonna sit here and act like it doesn't. I actually saw a stat. I think I don't know if it was high school or college fights, but 30% of them are black people. And I think that was the highest percentage. I don't know how the fuck I think that was the highest percentage. 30% were black people. I don't know if that was high school or college. I got to relook up the stat, but I'm not going to act like it's not us as a majority, but it's not just completely black people that do it all the time. Fighting is a thing that it's just in men, period. That's a man thing. Men fight all the time, everywhere. Come on now, man.
Top Asian hate crimes in New York City. And then I talked to every single Asian person. And I went to these protests and it made me really upset. I watched all the videos and the uncomfortable truth was Asians were afraid to talk about how most of the attacks, I would say 90% of them were black people because it's a protected class. You don't want to come off racist. And so they lumped it in and they used the crime statistics, which is hate crime. And hate crime is anything. If you say the word, use a racial slur against an Asian person, that's a hate crime. But the Stop Asian Hate Attacks was when an old Asian lady gets pushed over into the train tracks or an old Asian lady gets punched in the head 40 times. And if you look at what race is doing.
When the fuck was this going on? No, seriously though. What is Sneako talking about? When the fuck was this going on? And he's basically saying that he's going based off of his own personal experience where he went out and asked people specifically what they had to say. And apparently the people that he was asking were ashamed or afraid to say that it was mainly black people. Okay, Sneako, those aren't facts though. Those aren't statistics. That's not liable proof. You could just be talking here, but I'm not disagreeing he's not. I don't know. I don't remember an epidemic where, not epidemic, this is the wrong terminology to use. Obviously I'm using hyperbole here, but I don't remember when black people were just attacking and assaulting Asian people. I don't remember that. Was this around coronavirus? I'm pretty sure it was. Let us continue. I'm not sure.
That it was black people. And the reason, whatever justification you want to make for it, overall in New York City, there's
after the fact that they got attacked, why would they be afraid to say that it was black people? Because the black people are going to come back and attack them? Come on, it doesn't make sense.
There's more bums, there's more homeless people, there's more poor people that are black than other races. And so that's why poor people commit crimes more often.
See, but that speaks on a systemic issue here, though. Because there's more homeless black people, there's more in poverty black people for specific reasons that we don't have to get into right now. But come on now.
Again, he's not wrong. We're 14% of the population, and we're responsible for 50% of the violent crime. So he's not wrong. We commit.
Woo! Matter of fact, let me stand to be corrected, man. We're 14% of the population, but we're responsible for 50% of violent crimes. Wow. Maybe Nick and Sneako know what they're talking about here. Maybe they're, wow. I did not know that stat there. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay. Point proven. Okay.
Violent crimes more than any other race. But I guess where AD point is simply just fighting at Disney World or at an airport. How do you just attribute that to black people?
Well, and this is where tone matters. When I say I want to chop people's hands off, what I said was You think about airplanes and airport security and it's TSA and everything because of what, Al-Qaeda, 9/11. I said, well, and this is explaining the joke, kind of defeats the point of it. But I said, well, I'd rather have the Taliban run the airlines and cut off the hands of all the black people fighting on the airplanes and put the flight attendants in burqas than have what we have now, the current TSA regime, where you're going to have black people fighting on the plane and then a male flight attendant in high heels is going to go run and break it up. It wasn't an assertion of fact.
Okay, for on the behalf of Nick here, I can understand the joke. It was obviously just a joke there. If he's talking about the Taliban running the airlines and whatnot, it's obviously when you start a sentence off like that, it can be a serious statement. So, okay, Nick, it was a joke. You can't really condemn a man too much for a joke. You know what I'm saying? Even if it was a little racist on the top, but it was a joke at the end of the day. I can understand that, and we can move on.
Of like, well, we looked at the data and black people are fighting on airplanes more than anybody. Although I presume that's true. I haven't done the research, but I presume that's true. And so that's a joke. And the point is, AD, and I'm a little bit disappointed. If you can't say, like, you know what I'm talking about, if you're going to take umbrage at the fact that I say black people are fighting at the airport in Disneyland and say, well, white people fight too, like, you don't know what I'm talking about. That's just like either dishonest or delusional. I mean, I'm just telling it to you straight up. To say that makes me a racist because I have fucking eyeballs.
Oh, I didn't call you
Twitter.
anything. I'm just saying this wrong.
Well, you said it was white supremicists. See, both of the instances that you guys brought up were kind of jokes.
You didn't hear white supremacists come out of my mouth for any
no, that was the.
For the record, the airline shit was a joke. That first statement wasn't necessarily a joke. He definitely meant that when it came to interracial intercourse.
Question. My question was, can you name something that makes Nick a white supremacist? And both of you brought up jokes that, like, out of context, and the way you're saying it sounds bad, but that's what social media does now. You take things out of context to position somebody in a bad way.
I believe that 100%. You're right.
Right. So, and I think that kind of proves what you just brought up. But, like, what belief has Nick said that makes you think that he's a racist or a white supremacist?
With the question though, so isn't like again, I may be like severely misinformed. Isn't a white supremacist just like somebody who thinks that white folks are supreme, right?
Yeah.
To the other races. Well, Nick, like, don't you think that white folks are supreme?
No, and I answered that earlier. And the thing is about
Nick is capping. Like, come on, man. Like, the one thing I hate is like when a motherfucker just cap. Like, Nick, we all gonna respect you for speaking your truth. If you think y'all supreme, you think y'all supreme. Shit, I think black people supreme. I ain't gonna lie. Like, it just is what it is. Like, we ain't gonna hate on you, Nick, for speaking your truth. Speak your truth, man. Don't deny it now that you in the public eye. Come on.
So-called white supremacy is
I think that's embedded damn near in everybody. Jews think they're supreme. I mean, they it says it in their holy book. Like, there ain't nothing wrong with thinking that you're supreme. Like, you'd want to look at supremeness in yourself. You know what I'm saying? But not at the detriment of other races and people, of course.
It has to be a materialist worldview. You can, in my opinion, well, actually, that's not totally true. But as far as white people go, for the most part, you really have to not believe in the soul and believe in God to be a white supremacist. You can't be a Christian. You can't be, which is what most religious white people are. You can't be a Christian and say that white people are better than other people, because Christianity is a universal religion. It says in the Bible,
Okay, Nick has a very, 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 very valid point here. I got to give him props when it's due. That is definitely correct. And Nick seems to be a diehard Catholic, so when he speaks on religion and the beliefs, I'm gonna take his word for it. I mean, the man's celibate. The man is a virgin, and he's probably however long he's waiting until marriage to have intercourse, and he's a man. So he seems pretty religious, and I could probably take him for his word on that.
That neither Gentile nor Jew. Now, people take that to mean like, oh, that means everybody's equal all the time or something. But it means that we're all Christian. We all have a brotherhood in Christ, and we are all equal before God in terms of our soul. For you to say that white people as a race are better than other people, it's like, well, in what sense? Then you'd have to measure it out and attribute supreme value to a particular thing and say, well, if white people are better at something than another group of people, that makes them better as a holistic thing. And that, again, that you have to be non-religious to view it that way. So white supremacy is incompatible with being a Christian, and I'm Catholic. I am Christian. So
that actually is a good point. White supremacy is incompatible with Christianity. So you can't think you're white. You can't think you're supreme over other people and at the same time be a Christian. I guess that makes sense. Okay, Nick.
Yeah. Now, a better question is, what do you think that white folks are better at, than I guess any other race?
Better than any other race?
Yeah.
Well, I would
Look at Sneako.
say that every race has their strength. I would say the white people are very good at literature and architecture and philosophy and
basically everything.
Well,
No,
I mean,
lots of
Literature, architecture, philosophy. Like, damn, just say everything, bro. Just say everything. Like, damn, architecture and philosophy alone. Like, goddamn, philosophy? You're gonna attribute philosophy to white people? They're like, what? Let us continue.
He didn't talk about dance. He didn't talk about culture. He didn't talk about art. He didn't talk about creativity. He talked about pattern recognition.
So you think that the soul of a black person is to be like a great artist or dancer or what?
Basketball player, football player.
Well, no, now you're talking about soul. I think that, black people are great athletes and they're great artists. And that's not to say that black people can't be other things or do other things, but we're talking about the strengths
in general. And I see that this is, I think I just saw the hypocrisy here. See, if we asked AD and your name is Josh?
No, that's Flakko. But you can call him Josh.
Well, if we ask Flakko and AD, if we ask you, like, what do you think black people are better at than white people? You would both say dancing, music, basketball, and probably make fun of white people for being awkward. And nobody.
See, Sneako is weird. Like, why do you assume that they would say things that revolve around entertainment? Why do you think that they wouldn't have said anything else? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Nobody would get mad. Nobody would get mad at that. Everybody would accept that as a universal truth.
Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG in which you write your own.
That in general, black people are better at music. And then Nick says an honest answer, better at innovation, better at architecture. And then it's like, oh, well, so black people can't.
What substantiates these things? How are white people better at innovation and architecture, especially when it comes to innovation? How do you even measure that? But okay.
Do it, right? See, you get offended when Nick is truthful about the white race, but you can be truthful about other races and then nobody blinks an eye.
Hey, I have a question though, right? So, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No. So when Nick says that white folks are better at innovation, what did that mean?
Well, here's a good example. Asians, if you look at IQ, we talked about IQ earlier. Asians actually
Nick, don't change the subject. What do you mean by innovation? Like, what do you
perform whites dramatically on IQ tests and on math tests? And if you look at some of these tests, standardized tests before university. So if you were to say strictly by IQ and by certain tests, you would say actually that Asians are smarter. Now, would you call me that? Because I say that, would you call me an Asian supremacist? Would you say that I think that Asians are better than everybody because they have a higher IQ in terms of this metric? When I say whites are more innovative, it's because although Asians have very high IQ and are clearly predisposed to being good at math, I know that's like a stereotype, but it's based on fact. They outperform every other group in math. They're not as innovative, and that has a lot to do with their culture. That has a lot to do with their history, and of course, history and culture are in fact bound up with genetics. Behavior is bound up with genetics. We say things like the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. What does that mean? Children are like their parents. And there's a question about, is that nature? Is that nurture? It has a great deal to do with nature, more so than many people care to admit. And the point is, so Asians, although you could say in one sense they're smarter, you said better than other groups, they're maybe not as innovative. That's why they steal American technology. That's why they struggle to do a lot of things the Americans do. And so the point is, and I get back to the previous point, all human beings, I believe, have inherent dignity, and they have a soul, and they have a brotherhood and universality and equality before God. But that does not change the fact that there are inequalities between peoples and groups on various different things. But would you say that because blacks are better athletes, that they're better, they're the best race? Would you say that because Asians are the best at math, that they're the best race, or because, you know, whites have the finest literature?
I'm still puzzled on why he can't give an example for blacks that all the examples he gives for blacks have to do with entertainment.
That they're the best, you know, who's to say? Those are all material things. Those are all based on, you know, material conditions. If you have a religious view, then we're not just material, we have souls. And so we should be afforded rights and respect and dignity based on the fact that we're all human beings.
And I will say, though, that conversation, it is very weird that that's not a conversation that's really allowed to be had in public. And obviously somebody like Nick, who's been, you know, characterized the way that he has been publicly, him having that conversation, a lot of people are going to reject it or whatever. But like a lot of people have had their careers basically dismantled for just having the nerve to have the conversation about the correlation between race and IQ.
Yeah, man.
You got to just deal with Bitcoin now, or what?
I would actually like to see a debate that's revolving around race and IQ. I wonder. I mean, if we're speaking in terms of children, in terms of age 0 to 5, black children typically score higher on the IQ. And the only thing that brings black children down when it comes to IQ is there's a language barrier. There's like vocabulary has nothing to do with IQ. Vocabulary is taught. Vocabulary is learned. That has absolutely nothing to do with IQ and your ability to conceptualize the outside world. I mean, vocabulary is just taught. Vocabulary is a skill. That has nothing to do with IQ. IQ is capacity. And that's one of the things that holds like a lot of black children back, because vocabulary is incorporated in the IQ test.
Yeah, I basically,
even though anybody can learn vocabulary,
just do Bitcoin. I mean, the thing is, I've had
accurately or truly measure IQ.
Checking accounts, they just keep getting banned. You know, I got banned from Bank of America. I got banned from Chase. I got banned from US Bank. I got banned from, I think, one other one. I was on a local bank. They just banned me a month ago. I started up a new bank account. I'm hoping that goes okay. But yeah, I mean, the censorship thing.
See, I'm not even Nick's biggest fan, but it's fucked up that they're taking all his bank accounts away. Whatever the man said wasn't deemable to ruin his life. I mean, like, the man, let's say the man is racist. Let's say he is a white supremacist, whatever it may be. That doesn't mean you have to take the man's bank accounts, put him on the no-fly list. I think all that is fucked up, and I think that's a level of control being exuded that should not be, that they shouldn't even have. You shouldn't even have the control to be able to do something like that to somebody based off of what they say. Like, come on now. I'll see if he go out and, you know, commits mass murder, then it's one thing. But as long as he's not physically harming anybody, him speaking verbally should not get his money taken, should not get his bank accounts removed, and it should not prevent him from being on a flight. Like, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how those two things are tied or coincide. Like, what the fuck? If he wasn't in danger on the flight before, why is he in danger on the flight now? Because you know what he's been thinking in his head the whole time. It's not like he's just came up with these new thoughts. He's always thought like this. So why is he in danger now on the flight? Why doesn't he get a bank account now? Like, and I'm not saying I agree with the man, because maybe partially I do, but in a lot of things I don't, and I don't really even know a lot of his takes. But that just doesn't make sense to me, that you could just take all that from somebody. But let us continue.
Is really critical, because it's like Kanye, you know, years ago, maybe they forget, maybe not. He went on TMZ and said slavery was a choice. Now, would you say that constitutes something like slavery denial, if there's such a thing? We don't have a word for it. There's no museums, but would you say that constitutes something akin to? Well, he said slavery is a choice, and he was fine.
And see, he's using Kanye quotes out of context. Kanye substantiated that statement when he said slavery was a choice. He wasn't talking about plantation slavery. He was talking about these grown-ass men. He was talking about these grown-ass men signing these contracts without reading them. That's slavery he was talking about. He was talking about modern-day slavery. He wasn't talking about plantation slavery. When Kanye said slavery is a choice, he meant these rappers' contracts that they're willingly signing. He meant the institutions that are in place today, not plantation slavery. So I don't know why Nick tried to use that as a point and say that, and to debunk Kanye when it had absolutely nothing. He's just basically using it in the wrong context. And you're supposed to be Kanye's man. Like, you're supposed to know this shit, man. Come on, don't misrepresent him.
Fine. He was fine. He put out his Jesus is King album. He put out Donda.
Although I will admit, of course, when Kanye said that, he knew people were going to be thinking plantation slavery. That's why he worded it the way that he did, because he wanted people to have an adverse response to his message. Kanye knows that he needs a shock factor to really resonate the message. But when there's too much shock, and then the media is going to pile you up into some dirt, you're not going to be able to dig out and give the message that you were truly trying to give. So that's something Kanye needs to work on when he's curating his message. He worries about shock factor too much. You're already Kanye. You're already famous as fuck. Just speak and we'll listen.
Performed in Atlanta. He performed in Chicago and Miami. Then he said White Lives Matter, and he started talking about Jews. Then he lost his bank account. Then he got kicked out of stadiums. Then he got locked out of Instagram. Then he got locked out of Twitter. It's like,
yeah,
that kind of says where the parameters are. What's the line you can't cross? Everybody knows it's Jews.
So it's not comparable to blacks and Asians. Jews have the ultimate power. And that's not even anything hateful. I don't want people to label me as anti-Semitic. I'm already canceled, but that's just true. They have ultimate control and power, and they will abuse it if they need to protect their agenda.
Yeah, I mean, there's no use arguing that one, since we just saw it happen in front of our eyes with the Kanye bank situation. It's like, I mean, I don't know if he's going to end up regretting
that one is wild.
having said that shit or what, but
No,
I mean,
he's a genuine person. I think it's good that he's starting this conversation, because like me and Nick tried to have it, but we only have a limited level of power. The fact that one of the most
Kanye, he needs to be smarter with his money. He needs to just go up and get his own bank. He needs to create his own bank like Andrew Tate did. He needs to create his own money processors like Andrew Tate did when he got canceled. I mean, when you have that type of money and you're fortunate like that, fuck society, fuck the people that are trying to blackball you. Create your own thing so they cannot take them from you. Even though I'm pretty sure they're gonna try to, regardless. But come on, Yee.
famous artist of all time, and a billionaire saying it is like good. Now people are gonna start.
And I'm not sitting here vouching for Kanye or anything and trying to substantiate anything that he said. I'm just speaking in terms of like for anybody that could be in that situation.
Turning their heads to this.
Because this is the thing. I look down upon it, but there are a lot of fucking people out there who do not like Jewish people. And Kanye really is the first person I could pretty much think of in terms of like major celebrities to come out and really take that stance that that a lot of people would say behind closed doors. So the fact that he did it, because he really sees himself as like the vanguard that's going to say the things that nobody else will say.
He says that black people can never be anti-Semitic because we are Jews. That's what Kanye says.
Yeah. Now
he got the battery in his back from Candace, and he's out here saying shit that nobody ever said before.
Yeah, I definitely think Kanye is wrong. Like when he tried to do the Hotep Negro shit of like, yo, but like black folks is the original. Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, bro. Like Nick Cannon got canceled for that though, because he brought like some dude on and who was saying that black folks are the original Jews, and all type of Hotep shit. Yeah.
Damn. But what does
that comes from Farrakhan. That comes from Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, because Farrakhan has talked to Ye and he's talked to Nick Cannon and these other guys. And I don't subscribe to the Black Hotep stuff, but and Ye's coming at it from a position of credibility too. I mean, a lot of people are so quick, they have this allergic reaction, anybody talking about Jews, but it's like, if anybody knew, wouldn't it be a guy like Ye? Because he's not only like one of the biggest guys in music, period, but he's also one of the biggest guys in streetwear, period. And he's talked about for years that he's interested in business and he wants to do architecture and he wants to do clothing and he wants to do all these different kinds of things. And it's like, so if anybody would know, he's been to the White House, wouldn't it be him of all people? And the point being is, whenever you talk about Jews, people say, well, there's something wrong with you. Like you're like a sick individual, or you have some trauma, or you're insane, or you're a grifter. And it's like, you look at Ye, who's clearly none of those things. Like he's rich.
He's clearly going through a mental fucking breakdown.
I don't think
he's been on a mental breakdown for 6 years.
He's going through a mental breakdown, and then he's got a bunch of right-wing.
See, I don't necessarily even think Kanye is going through a mental breakdown. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I watched that last interview, it kind of seemed like he was going through a mental breakdown. But Kanye, somehow, I don't know. For some reason, I think he's trying to be all overly strategic about what he's trying to do. And I don't know. Kanye, he might at times seem unintelligent, but he's a very intelligent person. So I don't know. I want to see where this goes and where he's going. And I hope he doesn't ruin his life doing it. I hope he doesn't ruin his relationship with his children, trying to do whatever he's trying to do. But I don't know. Let's see if he's actually serious about this presidential candidacy, because the shit he's speaking on is some shit ain't no president ever spoke on before. So let's see if he gets him where he wants to get.
Grifters like Candace Owens, who got the battery in his back. He's just going out there to people like Nori who have never heard them, and he's just reiterating right-wing talking points that Candace is feeding him. And anybody who's watched her can see it transparently.
Candace Owens is not talking
married to a Jew, right?
Candace is smart enough to not say that shit publicly, but I'm sure he has all kinds of sources for his ideas at this point.
Nah, I think it's just him working in all types.
Yeah, that's blatant cap. Like he's not just reiterating what Candace Owens is telling him to reiterate. Like they said, Candace Owens is married to a Jewish man, and she works for a Jewish man. They're not the same man. I mean, but obviously she works for Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro is a heavy Jew. Like he's not. So come on, these aren't ideas that are being generated from Candace. Candace might be giving some insight and her own opinion on it, and she might agree with some of the things that Kanye is saying, but I don't think Kanye's feeding this into, I don't think Candace is feeding this into Kanye, because Candace is pretty controversial her damn self. If she wanted to say some shit, she'd fuck around and probably say her damn self. I'm not gonna lie to you, because we all know Candace Owens loves controversy. She loves it. She lives for it. So why wouldn't she want to take up for that shit? Come on now.
Of industries and seeing, if you work in the music industry, you know every single drill rapper has a Jewish guy behind them and they profit off of murder. In every single industry, if you look at the end of the rabbit hole, it's always a Jew who controls it.
Everybody who has a chance to is profiting off of murder in the entertainment industry.
All right, but that besides the point, Adam, that
is true. Everybody really is profiting off of murder.
Truth.
You're
behind
saying
the scenes,
label,
especially them.
The label owners, the people behind
the label owners, the real estate owners, like all the people with the most amount of money behind the scenes is a Jewish guy. And I think for Kanye to become a billionaire, he's seen a repeated pattern, and he's a type of guy who wants to give the power, that same power, to his people. And so he's talking about the fact that, look, why are we out here slaving away for Jews who are profiting off of us killing each other?
And he's been saying this for years. Even before this, you say, well, he's in the midst of a mental breakdown. He's been talking about this stuff since 2013. When he was on the Breakfast Club in 2013, he said blacks.
Yeah, to be honest, even me, I thought Kanye was low-key going through some things, or I thought maybe he was getting overprescribed. And I'm not even going to say the meds, because I don't know. Maybe that's what got my last video taken down. But I don't know. I thought maybe he's getting overprescribed, and we're going to call it L. You know what I'm saying? Because what it does is that medicine can make you act out in certain ways, because it suppresses certain things and then it just releases them, which makes you look crazy and act crazy, sound crazy. I thought that might have been the reason. I'm not sure. That was just one of my hypotheses. Don't quote me on that, but I don't think Ye is crazy. He sounds crazy. That's for damn sure. He's saying some crazy shit. That's for damn sure. I don't think the man himself is crazy. Assuming that that's still him. Not to get into conspiracies, not to sound like conspiracy theorists, but let's be real. Assuming that that's still him and he hasn't been replaced, which could be the case.
Don't have the same connections Jews do. And then the ADL came after him and said, that's anti-Semitic, that's an age-old anti-Semitic trope. And it's like, well, it's true. It's obviously true that Jews have connections everywhere in finance, Hollywood, media, university.
I don't get that. How is it anti, I don't even want to say the word no more. How is it anti, but when you're just stating an obvious fact, like the fact that they do have control and they have these connections is a fact. It's not hate speech. It's just a fact. That's like me saying, I'm connected with no jumper. If I was, that would be a fact. That's like me saying Sneako is connected with no jumper and Adam22 has all the control when it comes to the podcast. It'd be a fact because Adam is the top dog. Right? Like it wouldn't be hate speech towards Adam, would it? But what do I know?
Universities, they're overly represented in university, 1,200%. 1,200% more Jews in Ivy League universities than in the American population.
Sheesh.
So it's a factual statement.
Is that because affirmative action helps them get more placement?
Well, no. Well, number one, no. And that's neither here nor there because it's a factual statement. You could say, well, why is it? But it's true. And he got called anti-Semitic by a Jewish group. You could say, well, they're more overrepresented for one reason or another reason, but they are overrepresented. They do have connections. And Ye said, blacks need connections like Jewish people have connections. Factual statement. And the ADL, which is Jewish, says, you're anti-Semitic. You need to apologize. You're a terrible person. And Farrakhan backed him up. So he's been saying this for years. It's just that, and he said in the interview, He said, he didn't want to split apart his family because obviously to say these things, he said he was living in a glass prison where he's up there, he's elevated, he's got the big house and everything, but he can't say what he needs to say, even though.
See, one thing I also don't understand too is like, he's speaking on family and whatnot, but I mean, his family is the Kardashians. So let's just go ahead and speak on that. I mean, it's not like Kim is backing literally anything. Like, I don't know. I can't say that. I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know. That's what confuses me about Kanye, because it's almost as if the Kardashians go against everything that he believes. Are Kardashians even Christian? Are they? Like, could they possibly be? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm asking y'all, are they? Like, Kanye's big on Christianity. Is your family Christian? Is your wife Christian? Is your wife a soldier of God? Is your wife going to take your children down that route of righteousness? Or is she a prawn star?
He's influential and rich and everything. He's still in a prison because there's certain lines he can't cross, and he wanted to hold his family together. And then he said he finally had enough. That was in the Tucker interview. So that I would push.
And I think it's too easy to overwrite something that by saying that he's just he's a bot for Candace Owens, or he's repeating right-wing talking points, and that he's on a mental breakdown, or he's insane. I just did a podcast, Adam, with Academics 2 days before you, and he said the exact same thing. And I was talking about what Ye was trying to expose before the Drake Champs interview. And he said the same thing. He's clearly off his meds, bipolar. Bro, so he's been off his meds in a bipolar mental manic episode for fucking 6 years. He went to the hospital in 2016 after the Pablo show. So if he's been on a 6-year-long manic episode, that's the longest manic episode ever. And even in that period, he's made billions of dollars.
Me and Academics have been paying extremely close attention to Kanye's life for, like, in my case, easily like 20 years, like since he first came on the scene. And my honest perspective is that, yes, the stresses of just being unbelievably rich and having his family taken away from him and all these other things are weighing on him to the extent that he's having something that I would describe as a mental breakdown. I would say that is fair to say.
6 years straight.
And I think it's very...
I'd agree with Adam to a certain extent. The fame and what he's going through with his family and what he's going through with the backlash from society does have an effect on Kanye, because it'll have an effect on any human being. I mean, you can't sit here and act like it wouldn't. I mean, he could say it doesn't, but let's be 100. I mean, maybe he's rich enough to the point where he doesn't give a fuck, but I'm not saying that's why he's doing things that he's doing. I think he's consciously doing these things that he's doing strategically. I think I think he knows what he's doing. I don't know if I'm not saying this for the right reasons. I'm not saying this for the wrong reasons. I just think he knows what he's doing and he's aware of what he's getting himself into. Whether that's good or bad is up to him.
Very convenient that a lot of these right-wing type people are just there to sort of like slide their narrative in with him. But I mean, you're right. Like, he's been very susceptible to this stuff for a long time. And I realize that when I talk about him like that I'm kind of infantilizing him, I believe is how you say it. Yeah, and, I think that's probably kind of fair, but I feel like he's in like a weakened mental state and that people are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I just would disagree with that because, the people around him are not pushing anti-Jewish views. I mean,
nobody
Candace Owens, and certainly not Candace Owens. And to some extent, well, here would be my counterexample. In 2018, when he put on the MAGA hat and he went to the White House, two people came in: Candace Owens, who is his friend, and Candace Owens, at the time, she works now for Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. At that time, she worked for Turning Point USA. She worked for Charlie Kirk. And so Candace Owens with Charlie Kirk was meeting with Ye, and they were trying to get him to do Brexit conferences and do Turning Point stuff. And if you remember, it was in the end of the summer, I think in the beginning of the fall 2018, Kanye said, "I'm done with politics. I'm being used, and I don't like it anymore." So even you could say at the height, if you're saying that he's in a mental health crisis, when he released the album Ye, I'm Bipolar, It's Awesome, even then he recognized, oh, like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point are using me. He recognized that within months and said, yeah, I'm not really about this. I'm done with politics. He comes back later, and this time, nobody's putting this Jew. You could say that if he was doing Brexit, yeah, that's a Charlie Kirk program. Candace Owens, I believe, like Sneako said, is married to a Jew. At the minimum, she works for Ben Shapiro, who's a Zio Jew, turbo Jew. Zionist Jew. So it's certainly It's not him, or it's not her, and it's not Scott Adams, who he follows, or Ali Alexander, or any of his other political contacts.
Because I don't even think Candace Owens would be willing to put her reputation on the. Then again, she already got not canceled, but I mean, she already got disowned by the black community. I'm not saying me, but like a lot of the black community does not fuck with Candace Owens, so maybe she doesn't give a fuck about her reputation. I take that back. But I don't think she's the mastermind behind pulling the strings behind Kanye. I don't want to award her that type of competence.
It's probably Farrakhan, somebody who's been talking to since 2013 at least. And I would say that it's awfully convenient for whenever a Jewish
right. If anybody's helping Kanye come up with these, or helping Kanye come up with these realizations or whatever it may be, it probably would be the Honorable Farrakhan, because
whenever people talk about Jews, it's convenient to say, oh, well, they're just crazy. Oh, well, people are always rationalizing, looking for an excuse instead of, and this is what I put on my Telegram when it happened. What did he say that was factually wrong? Are Jews not all over the media industry? Like, is that not true? It is true. And is talking about their influence, is that off limits for everybody in every circumstance? Like, are we not permitted to talk about how many Jews are in media and what their influence might look like and what the implications of that are? Why is that a bad thing? Why do you have to be crazy to talk?
See, I don't always agree with Nick, but he brings up some very valid points here. I mean, the man is not lying. Or he is lying. I don't want you to take this shit down. So he's lying. So I know what the fuck I'm saying.
About that.
It is interesting how we've been sort of trained to understand that certain things are off limits, and we all reactively knew that Kanye had officially crossed a line that nobody had really crossed, and that would be
like
probably
3,
devastating for his career. Yeah, but he said a lot of stuff in the Drink Champs interview that's pretty much like on par with the DEFCON 3 thing, or maybe even crazier.
Yeah.
But Nick, one thing I was surprised by is because I would have thought of you as being somebody who was like extremely pro-America, but then I read a quote that said that you said that basically Ukraine deserves what they're getting right now from Russia because Ukraine is aligned with America and America is the great Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I would distinguish between America, which is like you and me and Sneako and like the people, and like.
What about me
See, like, this is why. Oh wait, we're not even that far yet.
and Flakko?
And yeah, and you guys too. So I just don't really know you guys as well.
What about me and Flakko?
America, which is like you. Absolutely. I mean, so I would distinguish between America, which is like you and me and Sneako and like the people, and like.
What about me and Flakko?
And yeah, and you guys too.
Y'all seen it? The blatant racism. Leave out the black guys.
So I just don't really know you guys as well.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? The two black guys?
Well, no, I don't know Flakko. AD, I just saw you recently. But yeah, you guys too. You guys are America, and people like Kanye and Candace Owens, for that matter, and John Miller and everybody. And I would distinguish that from the regime. What I call the regime, what some people call the government, I call it the regime, because America isn't just run. The authority in America doesn't just come from the government. It comes from a true regime, in the sense that the government is influenced by the media, and the government influences the media. And the same is true of Silicon Valley, and the same is true of the banks, and the same is true of Wall Street. And really what you have are maybe 5,000 to 10,000 decision makers across many elite institutions that are making decisions inside the government, outside the government, and the government is in bed with private institutions too. They're in bed with the Federal Reserve and the banks and BlackRock and Wall Street and so on. Anyway, and so when I talk about America's a great Satan and Ukraine should be punished and all this, I'm talking about this regime. I think the regime of America is evil. They do regime change in Libya. They do regime change in Iraq. They do regime change in the Balkans. And they did regime change in Ukraine. In 2014, the United States overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine, and they installed a pro-Western leader who was going to invite the European Union and NATO into their country, which Putin had said for years was a red line for Russia. And, and they fought this, they really had been fighting for 8 years. Realistically, ever since the Maidan revolution in 2014, there's been this proxy war going on between the separatists in Donbass and the Ukrainian government backed by NATO in Kiev. And so when I say the U.S. is a great savior,
yeah, Russia's definitely made it obvious that fucking Ukraine was a red line for the U.S. long ago before we heard about Ukraine. You know what I'm saying?
and I mean our military, our State Department, the government.
And I ain't saying that Russia's right or they wrong, whatever it may be, but from a strategic standpoint, as a leader in Putin, he gonna do what he has to do. I don't think Putin can lose this. He can't. He won't. We gotta understand, bro. Like these niggas is crazy. It's like, nah.
Our companies, our NGOs and multinational corporations, they're spreading sin, they're spreading decadence, they're spreading liberalism, they're spreading evil and death and destruction all around the world. And so insofar as Russia is opposed to the hegemony of the American regime, and I am opposed to the American regime, then that sort of makes us allies.
Interesting. So you're hoping that Ukraine gets wiped off the face of the planet, or are you looking forward to nuclear war, or what are you hoping for in this whole thing?
Well, I've been urging de-escalation. I think that the United States needs an off-ramp here. I mean, because things just keep escalating on both, it's reciprocal on both sides, and it is going to turn into a nuclear war if there isn't restraint, because it just keeps escalating. And so I think the United States needs to accept that Russia is going to win this war. They can't, like, it's literally is not allowable for Putin to lose this war.
See, and the thing about the U.S., they're not just going to accept that too either, because it's a strategic thing from the U.S. too. Yeah, we're spending billions of dollars, but Russia's going to allow us to do that. Russia's going to keep this shit going on and keep letting the American government exhaust their financial resources. But the only benefit that American government gets from this is they get to try out, they get to test new weapons and new systems, new strategies, new war tactics in a live war, essentially. That's the only benefit that the U.S. is really gaining from this, aside from putting Ukraine in debt, and essentially a debt that they're going to take fucking decades to pay back. So that's another strategic thing that the U.S. does. They lend out money because they know that they're going to put them in debt, which essentially puts you in power over the country that's in debt, that you're indebted to. You know what I'm saying? But that's how we're getting. We're getting the debt from Ukraine, which is a fairly poor country, so it's going to take them decades to pay that shit back. It's like we're going to immediately benefit, and the only benefit that the U.S. really has is the opportunity to test new military weapons in an active war, which is something that's probably never been done before. I mean, how many times do you get to test active military weapons in a real war? So that's the only thing. But Russia, I think Russia has the upper side because, like, Russia at war with Ukraine is like the U.S. at war with Toledo. There's just no compromise. There's nothing to compare there. I think the military is like 144,000, and Ukraine's military is only 44,000. They're giving out fake news and propaganda saying that the Ukrainians killed 10,000 Russians in 1 week. Come on, man. Even the Vietnam looking like, what the fuck? That's a crazy number.
So we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that Ukraine's not going to win. They're not going to take back Crimea. They're not going to take back Luhansk and Donetsk. Yeah,
at best for Ukraine. At best, I think Russia's already acquired like probably approximately 20% of Ukraine. So at best, Russia will say, okay, we'll leave y'all alone and we're going to keep this 20% that we already acquired from you guys. But that's at best. That's at best. So even if they do win, they still lost. And I don't even think Putin's going to be that nice, because if he went to go do all this, he knows that the world is going to start to strategize against him. I mean, America's already preventing Russia from paying back their debts that they owe to other nations. It's not that Russia doesn't have the money, but the U.S. is blocking them from being able to pay the money. I don't know if it's because the money is in U.S. banks or whatever it may be, but the U.S. is actively blocking them from being able to pay their debts off. So Russia will probably default in their debts, and we'll see where it goes from there.
So I think they should just withdraw, give it up, like Elon Musk said. Let's hold a UN monitored referendum in the breakaway districts. Let's say Crimea and Donbass are part of Russia. Let's say Ukraine will never join NATO. You know, I think that's a fair resolution, which is what was sought for 20 years.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does seem pretty crazy seeing everybody say that the risk of nuclear war is so much higher right now. But I mean, there's still a long way to go before we actually see Putin feel like he has to make that move, right?
Yeah. It's
Your guys' thoughts on the war, by the way.
The good thing is after Putin annexed those territories, the United States didn't really retaliate. So I thought that was sort of a good sign. But, they blew up those pipelines. They blew up the bridge connecting Russia and Crimea. So there's just there's just no restraint here. There needs to be some restraint.
Nick, there's one thing that I know these guys definitely want to hear you talk about. Why are you celibate?
Well, the easy answer is I am Catholic, so I think it's a sin.
Man, number one, we don't give a fuck why Nick is celibate. Look at him. We know he's celibate. Let's get back to the topic at hand, man. What are you talking about, Adam? You're too used to interviewing rappers and celebrities and shit. What are you talking about, bro? Nobody gives a fuck about Nick's sexual life. Come the fuck on, bro. Unprofessional as fuck. Like, come on, man.
Premarital sex.
This is a fucking race debate.
Yes.
So you are a virgin at this time?
Yes.
Wow.
So I think that the only morally licit sex is within marriage, which is how it was for thousands of years. But also I'm just sort of I'm like an eccentric. What you gotta understand about me is I'm like an eccentric genius. Okay, so I mean not only am I celibate because it's like the right thing to do, but also I'm just not really interested.
He can't connect with bots. He can't connect to normies on that level.
What's that?
No, he's at.
We got Big Sneako coming to defend Nick. You see, Sneako been waiting to defend Big Nick, slapping that nobby. He gonna be the one to break his celibacy. Second, I'm talking shit, man. I don't know why I'm hating on Sneako. But I fuck with Sneako.
That's beat your dick.
No, I'm anti.
You don't need porno till I beat your dick, though.
So you're on permanent semen retention mode.
Well, I want to get married eventually. I'm gonna get.
So you're
married
saving all
eventually.
your jizz for your future wife?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Nick, how old are you?
I have kids. I'm 20.
Bro, Adam is weird. Like, what are you talking about, Adam? Like, why are you not uncomfortable, like, talking about that to some nigga? Talking about you're saving all your jizz for your wife? Like, what? Why did you phrase it like that? Why? Like, out of all the ways you could have phrased it, that's what you say? Like, that's weird, bro. Something weird with Adam, or it's just a white nigga thing or something. Or I can't say nigga because they're not white, but I mean, because they're not black, but it's just a white guy thing or something. That's weird. Like, I know me as the big homie, I don't give a fuck what this nigga's doing in his bedroom or what he's lacking.
24.
Oh, he's a kid.
That's what I couldn't believe when he said that he was 18, saying that thing about the white woman fucking the dog, being like fucking the black guy. Like, he's got white power in his fucking veins, bro. Like, he knew from a young age. That's kind of like I feel
That's
like
why
a lot of
I'm
people.
afraid of him.
I'm thinking he's fucking 37 years old. And
He was a college student causing havoc. That's how he became famous.
He's like a Nazi whiz kid. It's crazy.
I'm not a Nazi.
Come
Well,
on,
ish,
come on.
like in that ballpark.
Right?
I'm a nice guy. And the thing is, like, and I put this on my Telegram. I want what's right for the country. I want to tell the truth, and the truth is uncomfortable. Like, believe me, I wish I could be a liberal.
Hold on, they took this nigga's bank account, but they still let him have Telegram.
Because liberalism has a
Telegram ain't doing shit.
lot of nice promises.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and
Telegram. I don't know why when he said Telegram, I thought Indeed in my head. I don't know. I mean, not Indeed, but LinkedIn. I don't know why I thought that, but I'm off topic.
and that would be very easy for me to be a liberal. I was a libertarian when I was in high school, but I just realized the world is a certain way, and I wish it weren't that way. Like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like, inequality is baked into the cake. That's sad. It's tragic in a lot of ways. But that is factual. Inequality is embedded in reality. Like, there's nothing equal about anything. Like, I don't know where that comes from. Human condition. And I think that in terms of, like, not in terms of human rights and whatnot, there's equal opportunity, but there will never be equal outcome. Never. Not in a million years, ever. We can do whatever we want to try to ensure equal opportunity. Yeah, of course, that's cool. But there will never be equal outcome, not in a million years. The answer is compassion. The answer is compassion and understanding and respect and love for people. But we have to tell the truth because the world is going crazy right now. The world's going to shit. Things are obviously declining. And the only way that we're going to turn it around is if we have some common sense and just call it what it is. And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable and it sounds a certain way. And I know I'm belligerent. Can be belligerent, can be offensive sometimes. And
we need to follow God overall. Everything
Yeah.
is better aligned if we follow God. Nick, I just left Adam22 studio, and that dude has a lot of Satan shit up in there, man. You got to go ahead and
he's
I have one little
he's
like
definitely
Satan
down,
head statue that somebody
he has
gave me.
one Satan head statue on his desk. He's got a Satan little doll behind it.
Somebody sent that to me randomly. I didn't go out of my way
I'm
to
not-
get either of these
I'm not
He's
things.
got a
that.
Satan tattoo on his hand. He's got an upside down cross tatted on his face.
I got
And-
trust God on my knuckles, man. I ain't with that.
You got an iPod
Thanks.
tattoo.
He has an upside down cross tatted on his face. Questions.
I do too.
Yo, I need tattoos. Yo, Nick, can
You're gonna look like Rick Ross.
I know, right? No, Nick, can we talk about the white devil, aka white liberals? So pretty much like the same people 60 years ago, and who was telling us that it's their cafe and like they can kick you out, because you're black, and that's perfectly fine. Those are the same motherfuckers telling us now, it's their platform. They can kick you off if they don't like your opinion, man. Now, what's your opinion on white liberals? I believe that they're our number one enemy.
You're like repeating his talking points back at him.
Who, Nick?
And
No,
it just
hell
sounds like,
no.
yeah, you are. It sounds less racist. No one's going to call you a Nazi for saying the same shit that Nick said.
I've never heard Nick say that. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
True, yeah, because I would say it's Jews. I wouldn't say it's white liberals.
No.
It's white
here's
liberals
why.
for sure.
Does Nick have like a green screen or something? Why he got this fire ass background? Like, I just peeped it. His background fire as fuck. He rather in some juiced up penthouse in New York or something where he got that green screen busting. And that green screen, if it's a green screen, that's an adequate ass green screen. It's working well.
So, man, white liberals are definitely the devil.
Here's why, though, because if you look at white liberals, and at least the radical, and when we're talking about white, I mean white, ACLU and other left-wing groups, they used to defend free speech. If you look at
Yeah, I think there's a green screen. Look at this. Look at the way the sky is moving.
like ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, they're a left group, but they defended the skinheads in Skokie, Illinois, when the neo-Nazis or the Ku Klux Klan wanted to do a parade.
Yeah, they switched their
Illinois.
whole shit up and nobody fucking talks about it. Yeah.
Not that I support that, obviously, but it's like they were left and they defended free speech, and now they're not like that anymore. The urge for censorship is really coming from the Jewish left, and it's not to say that there aren't white. There obviously are white liberals that are hopped up on that too, and I'd agree with you. Yeah, I mean they're imperialists, they're tyrants. They're trying to impose their way of life, but I think a lot of it does
So we're
stem
supposed
from.
to just accept that the Jews are tyrants who want to change our way of life.
They are. I mean, they are.
What do they want to change our way of life to?
Liberal,
They wanna have all the money.
international.
Nah, hold
multicultural.
up. Say it again, Sneako. Sorry.
Huh?
Say that again, please. Sorry.
I said they want to further a globalist agenda. They want to continue their power, and they want to keep most of the wealth for themselves. Globalism benefits the Jews.
Shit,
Yes.
hey man.
I mean, I don't
Again-
know. I need a fact check because I'm not
Yeah.
prepared to debate that particular part of this argument. But whatever.
I hope I don't. What are they going to take now?
No, for sure. I just feel like I should be able to offer some kind of rebuttal to that, but I don't really know. I'm not learned enough on the topic.
Well, I mean, I could argue the other side or whatever. The thing is there is no voice for this side. That's to me what's peculiar. Because the thing is, I wasn't much different from any of you guys because I've been interested in politics for 12 years. I mean, I was like a real young kid.
He was 12.
Yeah, literally, when I was 12, that's when I read Milton Friedman, Free to Choose, and I became real libertarian and everything. And I grew up in a normal working class household. Like I said, neither of my parents went to college. I'm like an American ethnic. I have no WASP DNA. I'm Catholic. I was in a white suburb, and I believed what was kind of fashionable at the time, which was, sort of like this right libertarianism stuff. And I went to college, and I was a Zionist. I was defending Israel.
What?
And big time.
You?
And, yeah,
Wow.
I was even going to work for.
What? When was Nick a Jew? And what made him convert to Catholic if he used to be a Zionist? What?
Ben Shapiro at one point at Daily Wire. And what happened was, well, the big thing to me, I was actually defending Obama, believe it or not, in 2016. And I told the story on a stream recently.
I don't believe it.
Really? I hated Obama. I hated Obama. But yeah,
Did we?
in December 2016,
Not I.
he didn't veto a Security Council resolution condemning Israel because Israel's doing these civilian settlements in the West Bank, and the international community condemns it. Technically, the United States, it's against our policy too since 1967. And so Obama didn't veto this resolution condemning them. And all the conservatives, and I was a Zionist conservative too, they were all like, oh, you're an anti-Semite because you didn't. And I said, well, wait a second. I'm like, Israel's going against our own foreign policy. Obama just abstained from voting. Why is that our obligation to serve them? And they said, well, you're anti-Semitic for asking that. And I said, what? I'm like, doesn't even make any sense. I'm like, that's no different than we talk about certain things and they call us racist, sexist, Islamophobic. How is this any different? And they said, well, you just can't ask that. And I said, well, why is there so much foreign aid to Israel? Why are there so many Jewish people in media? And they said, well, you can't ask that. If you ask that, we're going to stop talking to you. And then they did. I was talking to this girl in college, Cassie Dillon, and she worked at Daily Wire. And I was asking her, why do we give them $3.8 billion per year? Why did they write the clean break memo in 1994, which was basically laid the plans for the Iraq war 9 years before it happened, and so on. And she was a good friend of mine. She got me my show. I started my show because of her. And she texted me at one point and said, Nick, we're not in the same movement anymore. You're an anti-Semite. I'm blocking you on everything. And then for months, she would watch my show every night and call my boss and say, Nick just said this, Nick just said that. You need to fire him. You need to take him off the air. She was sending things from my show to Media Matters. Media Matters is like one of the big left-wing,
See, Nick doesn't seem too crazy. And let me see. Let me read the comments, man. Make sure y'all sub. Thanks for the content, King, and peace to the collective. Peace to the collective. Spiritual Tui. Yeah, make sure y'all sub, man. We about to go live right after this and review the Kanye's newest interview. Not the one on InfoWars, but there's another interview that we're about to go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and start winding down.
Handler minder groups,
wrapping it up,
like SPLC or ADL. She was a conservative. She worked at Daily Wire, and she was collaborating with Media Matters to smear me when I was 18, when I was a kid. And I was like, okay, so obviously it's legit. I mean, that doesn't prove it's legit, but it's a pretty good heuristic that it's like, if you're asking a question and instead of getting a persuasive rebuttal, they just cancel you. That's, again, it doesn't prove it's true, but it's a pretty good heuristic that it probably has some legitimacy to it. So that's how people say I'm like this twisted freak, or like, oh, there's something wrong with you. You're a grifter. It's
real quick. Can somebody let me know what Nick Fuentes said that got him canceled? Like, he seems like a fairly logical person. I just think maybe he's a little bit of an extremist. But what did this man do to get him canceled? Because I don't know. He gives the wrong vibes a little bit, but he seems pretty logical to me. Yeah, it's not saying I agree with the shit he be saying or nothing, because I don't know what he said.
It's like I believed a lot of fashionable things, and then based on experience and based on reading, I realized I was wrong, and then I go out and say it, and then I get shunned, and then I come on here and Adam says, well, I've never heard this before. I don't know how to rebut that. It's like,
because he just heard the talking points that make him seem like a bad person because they try to censor the truth.
Well,
and
I think
that
when you cite specific studies or whatever, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to rebut that because I'm not directly familiar with that. I'm sure
but
that
it's not really
some of the stuff that you just said about the history of Israel or whatever. I'm sure that there's going to be people who call into question certain details about that. I'm not really educated on that, so I at least
overall
want to admit my shortcomings there.
I've learned this from being canceled. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's Nick's general attitude. It's the fact that he's smart. He threatens the government. He threatens everything.
That is facts. In the generation that we live in, it's so attention-oriented. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Motherfuckers give a fuck more about how you say it than the message itself, and that's fucking ridiculous.
That the liberal agenda is about, and they just need to paint a picture of him that's bad. Like when I first had him on my stream, everybody was saying, no, no, no. I had him on, I thought he was cool. And later on my Discord, everyone's saying, no, no, no.
I'm actually about to go watch that stream next and do a live with it. The Sneako and Nick Fuentes stream apparently on Rumble, or maybe it's going to get me shut down.
That person, white supremacist, but I'm like, I talked to him and he seems fine. Everybody will try to shut out the truth because you're not supposed to hear it anymore. And I think that if we move it to the right direction, I genuinely right here, I'm endorsing it. I think someone like Nick Fuentes can win the presidency in 20 years.
Wow.
If America does not fall apart before then, I think he.
Dude, like Sneako, that doesn't even make sense, bro. Half of America doesn't like this guy. He's not a nationalist, and he's opposed to interracial intercourse. They're not gonna vote for him. People love their interracial shit. We live in a world where there's niggas that like niggas. He's like, come on, man. And I'm not saying that I'm advocating for that shit or nothing. I think heterosexual relationships are healthy, and those are the ones that we need to focus on in society. But Nick Fuentes, I mean, I wouldn't outlaw interracial couples and whatnot, but Nick Fuentes is obviously verbally against interracial couples. How the fuck could he run for president? He'd already lose. Let my ass have Kanye isn't winning shit. See, the funny thing about Kanye is like he seems so delusional and crazy, but for some reason I have a feeling he has a plan. For some reason it seems like he's going somewhere with this. I think he's trying to win like the far right wing people. You know what I'm saying? I think he's trying to win their votes by saying all these things. Like the people that think basically like Nick Fuentes. I think he's trying to use him as a pawn too to help win all these white votes, which is another reason for the White Lives Matter shirts and the stunts he's been pulling with Candace Owens. I think he's trying to win the white vote. I don't know if they're going to vote for him logically, or maybe he's trying to win it for Trump and be a part of his party. Maybe that was discussed at the dinner. I don't know what the plan is, but Kanye he doesn't seem incompetent. He may not be the best verbal speaker, but I don't know. It seems like he's going somewhere with this crazy shit, and it might work because, hey, I mean, look who we got in office now.
He has the capability. I think he believes in America. I think he believes in the people. I think he cares about the right things, and I think he sees the truth. And he's also a good speaker. People could follow him.
I think somebody who doesn't believe in race mixing is going to have a hard time getting elected to be the president. But at the same
I just said that.
time, I do have to admit the rabbit hole is real, because if it wasn't for you and Destiny being cordial enough to sit down with Nick, then I would not have thought of him.
Make sure y'all go ahead and hit that sub, man. Like, come on, sub to your boy, man. Let's get familiar with each other. Peace to the collective.
As being, somebody who is safe to platform, which obviously you guys can tell that's like part of my concern.
And if anybody wants to actually go live and come up on here and have something to say, I'll drop the link in the chat. Y'all just let me know if you want to come up on here and have a conversation.
Here, I've had a lot of people reaching out saying that I'm fucking crazy for even having Nick on the show. But at the end of the day, I think we should be able to have conversations with people we disagree on. Although I am currently wondering if this podcast is going to get taken down for Holocaust denial.
Great. There's a really good chance this is not going to make it.
That part might have to get censored, which is a real shame, because then where does that content go?
I just dropped the link in the chat, man. If you want to come up on here and chop it up, politic with me, there go the link right there.
Well, maybe that goes on the No Jumper Rumble.
Yeah, I would put some of it on Patreon, but yeah, it's gonna get taken down. Everything that I had with Nick got removed or got me strikes and stuff like that.
Really?
So genuine point. If you want to keep up your channel, I would be careful.
Does Destiny make you be careful about what you'll talk about when you stream with him? He won't let you.
No,
talk
Destiny's
about
fine because Destiny's a federal, he's a Fed agent liberal, so he's able to say whatever he wants with Nick because he disagrees. So they want you to disagree with.
Oh, you were talking about the presidential race. Yeah, Kanye not winning that. Oh, I'm fried. I took that completely out of context. My bad. That constellation just hit my fucking head. Yeah, Kanye's probably not going to win the presidential election, but I think he's trying to help Trump win. I think that's why he's doing all this. I feel like at the end of all this, gaining all these right-winger votes and doing all this crazy shit in the favor of white people, I think after he does all these things and gets them on his side, I think he's gonna drop back and say, vote for Trump. I'm gonna run with him, be part of his party. I think so, but then again, it's Kanye, so who the fuck knows what he's really gonna do
with Nick. They don't. If you agree with him at any point, right now, I see you guys listening to him like, oh, Nick's making some good points. That's gonna get you in trouble. If you call him a Nazi for the rest of the show, we can stay up. But I gotta get going.
Well, you think
you're good, protected. I gotta go. Thanks for having me on.
Do you think that Destiny's posture is aggressive enough that that's why they don't feel like they have to take it down? Is because he's arguing with them a lot?
I think it concerns what we talk about, because I don't know what Sneako got banned for specifically. I didn't see what was flagged. I don't watch all of his streams to know necessarily, but with Destiny, I would say that, it's because we never really talked about COVID. I think that's probably a part of it, because with YouTube, there's specific things that you're not allowed to talk about. You can't talk about election fraud. You can't talk about COVID. And those are two things I don't know that we've ever talked about. But yeah, I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that he pushes back. I think that insofar as you're answering it, insofar as you're, like,
yeah, I always wondered why, like, whoever Destiny has come on, they let him keep his streams up, but if that person goes on somebody else's platform, the video always gets deleted. That's always weird to me. I don't know, maybe because he's a homosexual liberal.
Said aggressively, combating it, then they don't consider that like advocacy, which is kind of fucked up that YouTube gets to decide, oh, this is your opinion. You don't get to have a YouTube. Oh, you disagree with that opinion. Okay, then you're fine. Like if censorship is reaching into that, it's one thing to say you can't say it. It'd almost be better if that's how it was.
Right.
You can't say this thing. But they're like adjudicating, well, this guy doesn't believe this, so he gets to have an account. And that's kind of weird. That's a little bit, I think that's invasive.
It is such a weird feeling to be having a conversation with somebody. And normally the only stuff that I'm thinking of in terms of stuff we can't show on camera is like boobs and maybe like somebody doing drugs or something. Like there's not that many things we really have to avoid having on camera. So it's weird to be having a conversation where I'm like, this idea that he's saying right here is potentially enough to get this video removed. It's very like strange feeling.
I appreciate y'all for subbing, man. I appreciate y'all.
I'm really happy for it.
Yeah, man. Yo, listen, Nick, can we talk about our good friend Tariq Nasheed?
Yeah, how you feel about him?
Are we there yet? Almost. Because DraftKings.
Wait. So first off, did you guys have a debate at some point or a conversation on air?
No, we've never talked.
Wait, so I think he said during like my interview, and he was spanking one of like your friends or somebody associated with you, and then like they got to trolling. Yeah. So like, what's your like your opinion on our good friend Tariq Nasheed?
Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan. I just think that to me, he comes across as sort of disingenuous. Like as an example, he said that I was begging to do a debate with him on your show. I've never talked to Tariq. My people have never talked to Tariq, like my team. He's debated people I know, but so he just straight up lied. He's like, oh yeah, that white supremacist, he's been begging to debate me. It's like, that's not even true. That's just a bald-faced lie. And he also said that I'm like a troll and like I conceal my real views and I'm just not a serious guy. Like that's not true either. And I feel like he makes a lot of these broad assertions like that, just sort of flippantly. So I think he's a little bit disingenuous, but he's funny.
You do give me like super villain vibes right now.
Why do I give you super villain vibes?
I don't know, man. There's something about you, Nick.
You could see him having a Joker arc.
It's the background.
I like the Joker, yeah.
It's the background.
Right? It's kind of like the background, man. Yo, so here.
Oh, we lost Sneako.
Yeah,
that's okay.
He told you.
Yeah, he left.
Oh, he said he was leaving.
Yeah,
my bad. I got distracted by TikTok.
Nah, yo, Nick. So like, what's your take on, I guess, black folks receiving reparations?
I'm against it.
Why?
Because I think that.
See, this is where, let me let him speak first, but nah, fuck that. This is where Nick gonna lose it though. But the whole reparations thing is, I don't think giving money or what, it depends on what form of reparations it's gonna be. But giving people a whole bunch of money that don't know how to spend money or invest money is not gonna help the black community. So if that's what reparations is, then we don't really need that, because giving out a whole bunch of stimulus checks isn't gonna change the situation. It's gonna put people in more debt. It's like winning the lottery. A lot of those people always end up in more debt because they don't know how to manage money. So reparations isn't going to change us. What we need is educations and institutions in place to help us learn how to spend that money and how to acquire the money, put it in the right spaces, and a network. Like, I don't think giving out people money, reparations, whatever it may be, that's not going to help the community. And in fact, it might throw it out into more outbursts. I don't know.
That I'll grant that. The Institute, first of all, I'll say, in case you guys don't if this needs to be said, I'm against slavery, okay? I'm against the chattel slavery of black people. Obviously, it goes without.
That means, I don't know, that makes me feel like this nigga really has some dark thoughts or something, the fact that he felt the need to make that a disclaimer, because nobody said anything about you being for slavery. So I don't know this. I don't know why he made that disclaimer. He's making himself look bad.
Saying, but just in case, because you guys are, at least Adam's saying I'm a Nazi or white supremacist. I'm against that.
Well, AD probably feels reassured to know that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I just want to let you know explicitly. I think that there's a lot of historic injustices and wrongdoings, and you could say that slavery was bigger, like more particular, but it's just like, who's going to pay for it? Are you going to track down the slave owners' descendants and take the money from them and give it to the descendants of the slaves? And how do you calculate that? It's horrible. It's a horrible wrongdoing, which, is obviously.
I mean, although I don't think we need reparations, and I think that we just need, financial literacy. Come on now, the Jewish people got reparations, so it's not like it's impossible to be able to do so. He's saying that like, oh, well, I don't know if you did it. Well, it's not like they found all the Nazis and the descendants of Hitler and made them pay the descendants of the Jews that were in gas chambers. There's a lot of that shit's not even documented. Let's be keeping it 100. But they found a way to still do it. So he's saying it like it's impossible. It's not impossible, but me saying that doesn't mean that that's what I think we need. I don't think we need reparations. I think we need financial literacy. I think we need institutions in place to help the community. I think we need to,
set blacks back. It's a big disadvantage that they were enslaved, of course. But where does that start and where does that end? I mean, do you go to Africa and do you hold the people that sold them into slavery accountable? I just feel like that's...
Nick is funny. He is funny. Yeah. Because there are some Africans that played a role in slavery. I'm not going to lie to you. That was a valid point he just made there.
It's just impractical.
Here, so like, is your argument it's impractical? I don't understand how it's going to work, or are you against it if they could figure it out?
I'm also against it in principle because the people that they would be robbing, the people they'd be stealing from to pay for that, at some point it involves the government is going to take money from some people and give it to other people. And that's like the sins of the father type stuff. It's like, we're going to take your money because of what your ancestors did, and we're going to give it to somebody else because of what their ancestors suffered. So in principle, I'm opposed to it for that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just still not as, it still doesn't compare to homicidal genocide. Like,
yeah, I'm not an FBA, so I'm not getting any, coins. Like, do you want to respond back or no?
Wait, so you think AD would be a recipient and you wouldn't be?
Yeah, right.
I definitely would be a recipient.
Yeah, I wouldn't, since I'm not.
I mean, our people was brought to this country, you know what I'm saying, like forcefully at the end of the day. So, I mean, I do feel like you said, there's a lot of injustice in the world. There's a lot of situations that we could bring up, but yeah, like we've been pushed back. Like you said, we're still like trying to recover. We're still getting our, we still ain't got our just due when it comes down to that. And I do feel like my people should get our reparations.
And that's probably the thing that people really want to know about.
See, when they say reparations, like in what form? Like, because if we just handed out a whole bunch of money, I don't think that might throw society, that might throw the Black community into more trouble than we're already in. Because without financial literacy, more money is just more problems.
How Nick really thinks is when you say, "Oh, Black people are always fighting on airplanes."
Just give us some banks or something. Just let us own some shit. We don't need the money. We just need to own the shit. It's like, nah. But for real though, shit, they gave the Jews a bank, you know what I'm saying?
Or whatever. Do you think that Black people are fighting on airplanes because of systematic racism that set them back in terms of poverty and everything? Or do you think that that's the truth because there's something in the soul of a Black person that just makes them violent, which I think a lot of people would find that to be the offensive explanation. And most people would assume you to have that opinion, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it's your soul, but when we're talking about behavior, the question is, you've got these behaviors, criminality, and if you want to say pugilism, fighting is a behavior. And so the question would be, if Black people are behaving in a different way than white people generally.
Matter of fact, too, let me know your thoughts on reparations. What do y'all think about Black people receiving reparations for slavery? Do you think it'll be beneficial? Do you think we need the financial literacy before we can even do anything with money? Do you think it's even necessary at this point of where America is? What do you guys think?
Why is that? What would you?
Once again, the link to join is in the chat, but you don't have to join. You can just drop a comment.
Attribute that to. And the explanation for all of it, all the disparities between Blacks and white people, liberals say, is injustice. It's racism, it's bigotry, because they assume that white people and black people in a vacuum are going to behave exactly the same, perform exactly the same, have the same capacity and faculties and so on. And so if they wind up in a different place, well, something had to happen in the middle, which was discrimination, racism. They were brought up the wrong way, educated the wrong way. And I would say that it's wrong to assume that behavior is not genetic. Behavior, as we know, is genetic. Sociopathy, antisocial behavior, there is a strong heritability for those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of different hypotheses about, what gene.
I don't agree with that. I don't think I necessarily agree with that. Behavior is learned. Behavior is more so nurture over nature. I mean, it's more so, nurture over nature. You don't come into this world with already perceived behaviors of the world and how to act towards people. That's factually incorrect. Behavior is not genetic. I mean, if you're more inclined to be like, if it's a neurotransmitter thing, you're more inclined to get angry, you're more inclined to do this, that, and the third. But how you act on it, how you act on those things is not genetic. Like, behavior is learned. Logic is essentially instilled in somebody. Should have gave the money to actual children, grandchildren of slaves, but at this point it's just too late. I don't necessarily think they should just give them the money, but I think, I don't know, something like land would have been more beneficial. Something like, because the money wouldn't do anything without the financial literacy, and that's what we're lacking. That's why the Black community has stayed where it's at for so many years. You know what I'm saying? But I get what you're saying too when you say at this point it's just too late. But I mean, you got to think of relatively, how long did slavery last, and then how long ago was it? Was it really that long ago? But like I was just saying, though, money probably won't. Handing out money is not going to fix our fucking problems. It might actually make them worse. That's the crazy part. You know what I'm saying? And giving land to people that don't know how to do anything with it, like, we need financial literacy. And that's funny because they can't give us that. They can't give us education. That's something that we need to give ourselves. Whites in poor environments are just likely to steal as blacks in the environment. Nick is goober. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's a poverty thing. I don't think it necessarily even has to do with race. The poverty thing is about your community. Nick is trying to act like these things are just inherently in black people and that you're just born with aggression and you want to fight and do all these things. But these are learned behaviors. This is, once again, a debate between nature over nurture. Like, maybe your neurological chemistry is genetic. Like, yes, you're more inclined to get angry at something, or, your neurotransmitters are going to respond in a certain way. Maybe your dopamine levels are just naturally lower than everybody else's, but how you act upon those things is behavior. Like, come on now, like you could raise two children with the same genetic makeup and they could be completely different people. Like, come on, that doesn't make sense. On Nick's behalf. But I do completely agree with you. Whites in poor neighborhoods are definitely just like blacks. I mean, poverty is poverty.
Is it necessarily or whatever, but we do know that antisocial behavior is genetic. Can it also be environmental? Certainly. But we also know that people have a temperament. Some people
maybe to an extent antisocial behavior might be genetic if there's an imbalance in your, neurological chemistry. But at the same time, those things you can be, I don't know about all that, Nick. I don't know.
Just not in their temperament to fight. Would you say that's because they were taught that? We all know, because children
hold on.
To fight, certainly. But we also know that people have a temperament. Some people, it's just not in their temperament to fight. Would you say that's?
Yeah, but that's an environmental thing. If you were to put that same person in a situation where they had to fight constantly as a child, then what? Are they not going to be subjected to wanting to fight and to aggressive nature? Like, come on now. It's all about environmental thing. You can take a white kid. You could take a white kid, put him in the wrong situation, and he's going to be just as aggressive because he had to defend a certain way to defend himself. You can take a black kid, put him in a really good situation, and I guarantee you he's not going to be ultra aggressive and trying to fight 24/7 if he didn't have to grow up doing those things. I don't know where Nick is getting. Nick thinks everything is nurture here when it's nature. I mean, everything is nature when nurture definitely plays a role. Your environment plays a big role in how you act and who you are. I don't know why he's trying to act like where you grow up and how you grow up has absolutely nothing to do with your behavior, when oftentimes behaviors are learned. That's why you're not supposed to act a certain way around children, because they'll pick up on those behaviors, correct? Come on, Nick, you sound dumb.
because they were taught that? We all know, because if you know children, some children like to fight, some children don't. Is it because they were taught that? Sometimes it's brothers and
yes, but if you could say that, but you could also say that if there's one child that grew up around a whole bunch of fighting and was always fighting as a kid and subjected to that thing, and it was encouraged by his older siblings or parents or whatever, maybe if it was encouraged, then of course that kid's gonna like to fight too. So that doesn't connect there, Nick. Like, you have to put the environment into play too.
sisters by the same parents in the same school have a different nature. And we could say nature's said another way, they have a different genetic makeup. And so I would say that, I think that why do blacks commit 60%? It's 2021. It was actually 60%, not 50. Why do they commit 60% of the violent crime? I think because there is a genetic basis for their behavior.
No, it's because there's a correlation to crime and poverty, you fucking idiot. Like, what are you talking about, Nick? There's a direct, the uprise in crime parallels the parallels and uprise in poverty. Like, is he stupid? Like, is this man stupid? If you go to let me just continue.
Africans lived in Africa for thousands and thousands of years without a lot of mixing.
Right. So are we saying, are Africans in Africa just all fighting like they are in America? No, they're not. Why is it not happening over there? Are Africans in England doing as much as the Africans in America? When I say Africans, I mean African American, obviously. But are they? Is it equivalent? No. So you can't say it's just genetic makeup when two people from two different continents could have the same genetic makeup, have the same biological parents, but one person grew up in England, one person grew up in America, one person grew up in Africa, one person grew up in America, one person grew up in poverty, one person grew up in a good situation. Come on, Nick. You sound like, come on, man. It seems like, I don't know. It seems a little bit, I was low-key fucking with Nick earlier, but now it seems a little borderline, like he got some hate towards African Americans. I don't know.
With people on other continents, the idea that we would all behave.
Well, maybe it seems like he's been in a bad situation and he's oftentimes been a victim. And maybe this is where all this prejudice comes from. Who knows?
And think and be exactly the same.
And if he was a victim, oftentimes I don't blame him for his perspective, but that doesn't substantiate his perspective either.
As groups, to me, is somewhat ridiculous. So I think that there's a cultural aspect, sure, but I also think there's a genetic aspect too. Nick, it's not their soul; it's genetics.
Nick,
if Chicago was all white, crime rate would be just as high, right? If Chicago was all right and they were all in those exact same situations, going up around the exact same shit, why do you it's a reason why Chicago's crime rate is so high. They're all going up around that shit, so they're all acting on the same shit. What the fuck? That's why the crime rate from from Chicago and Toledo are not the same though, right? Correct? And I'm pretty sure there's Africans in both situations, African Americans. Like, Chicago is the environment. Any kid that grows up in Chicago is gonna act a certain way. They're gonna speak a certain way. Even Chicago people just naturally have more aggression. Everybody knows that. Everybody that's been to college and has met Chicago, even females, the Chicago women. All of them, the Chicago women, they're naturally just more aggressive because of the environment that they grew up in. Like, come on, and they're women. Like, come on, man. They're not even biologically wired to be aggressive and to be fighting. Like, come on now, what the fuck? Let me see. LOL, Nick definitely got his ass whooped by a couple of minorities. Yes, I think that's exactly what happened here. Nick didn't know how to defend himself. He was in the wrong situation. He thought his mouthpiece could... You know what I'm saying? He seems like he talked a lot of shit as a kid. He seemed like he was arrogant. He seems like his dad was encouraging that type of shit, but his dad never taught him how to fight. So he talked some shit to the wrong guy and fuck around and got that splash handed to him. You know what I'm saying? Got that shebang. Come on, Nick. Like, he's not even speaking from logic anymore. Like, it just seems like prejudice.
I can grow up where you grew up, and I'll probably be just like you.
Thank you.
I'll be a whole totally different person.
Thank you, AD. Like, there's something wrong with Nick here. Like, goddamn, what are you talking about, Nick? You sound like, come on, man, you sound stupid.
Person, and a lot of these, a lot of black people, and you said that commit all the crimes, that do all this stuff like that. Like, there's liquor stores on every corner where we come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's guns being, conspiracy, they're being smuggled in. They ain't even really no conspiracy and stuff. It's easier for me to get a gun eat legally than it is to be legally at the end of the day. And there's a lot of it's a lot. The school systems are more fucked up. Like everything is fucked up when it comes down to that. And I think like now, you said something earlier that black people, our issues get put to the top of the list now versus white people, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Like, goddamn, at least somebody has some knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, but yeah, I feel like a lot of things is location. A lot of things is a lack of opportunity at the end of the day. I mean, even if you look at like
Yes, it definitely has a lot to do with lack of opportunity. When you have to fans, you're willing to go further than the next guy. When you've seen the guy that grew up in front of you, the nigga that you looked up to, go this far to get that, you're willing to go just as far. When you've seen your best friend kill to get this, or feel like he had to do this to get that, you're gonna feel the same way. When you're subjected to a certain reality, okay, not reality because we all live in the same reality. When you're subjected to a certain environment, it plays a crucial role on your development, especially from an adolescent standpoint. Like, what are you talking about, Nick?
Something like Section 8. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can't have a man in the household. You know what I mean? Or with Section 8. So I mean, a lot of these.
Also plays a role too. I mean, we all know black communities are notorious for not having a male figure in the household. Why do you think that's why these men, a lot of these men have the emotional reactions of a woman. They're more impulsive. They don't think before they do. They're hurt. They get hurt, so they just act. And obviously, women, when they're hurt, they're not going to be able to they don't have the same capability of rage that men do. Men have a different level of rage. So when you get a male that's raised by just a woman and has feminine attributes and has a feminine impulsive mindset, and you couple that with rage and a man's physical ability to destroy shit, what do you get? You get Chicago. What do you get? You get Chicago. Like, come on, man. Like,
these kids are growing up without fathers, without father figures in their system. I mean, in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. And there's a lot of situations, bro, that we can sit there and break down to why a lot of crime happens, why things are happening the same way.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you can explain it. There are cultural and environmental explanations for it, but notice that liberals say it's just that. They refuse to even entertain the idea that there's a genetic basis.
Oh my gosh, like he's about to go back and try to blame the liberals. Like, we know liberals use race as a psychological control for black people because we have the psychological connection to the word racism. We know the liberals. We're not talking about the liberals and the left right now. That's not what we're discussing. Like, come on, don't try to bring it back to that point to substantiate your viewpoint.
For any of this, that it's racial, that's sort of cooked in. I'm not saying that it's all the way genetic. I'm saying that, because you're right. I mean, those things everything you just said is true about Section 8.
Now we're gonna see Nick backpedal a little bit here, because the boy AD just spit some game to the man. And let's be real, Nick is a logical person. He's intelligent enough to understand that he was wrong. So we're about to watch him backpedal a little bit, and because he just obviously said it had a lot. He made the genetic makeup a big point, a big factor. But now we're about to continue to watch him backpedal after he realizes that his statements can't be substantiated.
About the incentive structure by these government programs, about food deserts and things. That's all true. But at the same time, you also look at behavior, and behavior is genetic. And IQ is another thing where Destiny, and I use him as an example because he's a liberal and he's sort of on the other side. He didn't say this on your show because, Adam, you asked him, you said, what do you make of the race and IQ thing? Do you think that there's a disparity in IQ? Mm-hmm. And he skipped over that and said, well, here's why there is. He never said there is, but he believes it all the same. He believes there's a disparity in IQ. IQ is heritable. And IQ is also something that's a predictor. It's the best predictor of future success. If you look at people and you take a cross-section of a lot of different people and you look at where they wind up, the best predictor of their success is IQ, as opposed to other environmental things, other factors.
You see how you call this a red herring. What a red herring is when somebody tries to make something else a focal point to get away from the main topic at hand because they don't have an actual rebuttal. This is why he's talking about this instead of what AD was just speaking on? Like, what do you? Come on, Nick.
That's not a perfect 1-to-1, but it's the best one. And IQ is a genetically heritable trait. And
like IQ has nothing to do with capability of violence. Like, I mean, obviously it has something to do with it, but it's not a leading factor. Just because you have a lower IQ, you're not going to be more violent. Just because you have a higher IQ doesn't mean you're going to be less violent. Like, what are you talking about, Nick?
And so he would say, well, your IQ is formed by your environment. Your behavior is formed by your environment. Everything's
IQ is not formed by environment. IQ is capacity. You're born with your IQ and you die with your IQ. You cannot, well, you cannot increase it and you cannot decrease it from my knowledge. IQ is capacity. You can acquire more knowledge. Yes. You can learn more knowledge. This refers back to my point of how vocabulary has nothing to do with IQ, because vocabulary is just knowledge. Vocabulary is taught and learned. Anybody can have a vast vocabulary, but IQ is capacity. You cannot acquire more intellect. Intellect and knowledge are completely different. You can acquire as much knowledge as you want, but your ability to conceptualize that knowledge will always trickle down to your IQ.
Formed by your environment. What we're finding out with modern science is that so much is genetic, and I don't like that. It's uncomfortable. It's sad. It's tragic. It's inequality, but it is real. And if you want to understand how to help people and how to make things better, you're not doing people any favors by saying, well, they just are a victim of circumstance or something like this. Because I agree with you, those things are all adverse, obviously, but nobody will hear out the case that maybe we're not all starting from the same place to begin with, which I think there's a lot of evidence for that.
So you're saying genetically Black people are more angrier, or we have a gene in us to commit more crimes. Was your logic correct?
You see how dumb it sounds when he said it out loud, right? And now he's about to use another red herring to get around this.
Well, it's that they're more anti.
You see how he's not directly answering the question, yes or no?
Social and a higher incidence of sociopathy, and on average lower IQ. And you look at the societies that Africans form elsewhere. I think it bears this out. People look at Africa. Africa's a total disaster. It's a total dump. Sub-Saharan Africa.
How are you gonna say that? We have most of the vast resources from Africa.
It was also colonized by everybody in Europe.
There's a reason why Africa is the way that it is. Like, come on now. We're not gonna, man, that's a whole nother conversation. Let's continue. Let us continue. Especially the fact that Nick is speaking from ignorance. You never lived in an African society okay, let's continue.
Taking everything from that.
That's where I'm going with that.
Okay.
So, people look at the state of Africa today, which is just unmitigated disaster. And they say, well, that's because of colonialism. Well, when the colonialism didn't begin until
the fact that he can just say all of Africa is unmitigated disaster. Like, where are you? There has to be some prejudice here. He has something in his heart that will not let him see Black people as competent. There's just something in his heart that will not let him do that. So I see where the white supremacist shit comes from. Okay, makes sense now.
Interior of Africa until the late 19th century. It wasn't until the late 19th century when there's this big scramble to colonize Africa. And when we arrived there, they didn't have written language. They didn't have two-story buildings. They didn't have complex society.
So how did they communicate, Nick? Like, yes, there wasn't written language because there was other forms of communication. Back at, like, oh my gosh, come on. Like, where do you think the whole concept of telepathy even comes from? That's something that was stolen from African culture and brought into American culture and turned into some superhero shit.
Societies, like there's no real good record of African history other than what the Muslims or the Christians.
And then look at Egypt. Like, what are you talking? Like, god damn. Like, we can't even conceptualize Egypt today. We can't even conceptualize the shit that went on and how these things happen in Egypt today. We think they have technology that we're decades from, that we're eons from. And you want to speak like the fact that this man can't acknowledge any competence is blasphemy.
Wrote in Northern Africa around the sort of West Coast because they didn't have writing. And I don't say that. So
why? What is all this stuff in the pyramids? That's not writing. What are all the things that they're trying to translate from ancient civilizations? That's not writing. What are all the things from the emerald tablets that were translated into the Bible, the Quran, and other holy books that we have today? That wasn't writing? Nick is a fucking idiot. Like, Jesus.
To be ignorant. I don't say that to be funny. I'm not saying that to be a jackass. I'm saying that to mean, this is the state of development of that continent, of that people. And so in a sense, it's almost cruel then that you bring these people over into Europe, you bring Africans into Europe or in America, and then they're underperforming, and it turns into, oh, well, it's the government, it's the programs, it's this or that. It's like, well, the level of development wasn't very high to begin with. And I say that with compassion. I don't say that to be condescending. I say that with compassion. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it was. And, you can't blame the government for the fact they didn't develop written language in thousands of years,
Are y'all hearing with the same shit that I'm hearing? There was no written language in Africa before slavery. Did the pyramids exist? Did the white people go to Africa and built the pyramids and write all the scripture? Did the white man create the emerald tablets that translate into the Bible today? Was the Bible written after slavery? This man is an idiot. Like, come on. Like, am I the only one that's hearing this shit?
I wish I had a better counter argument to that. I'm sure there is one, but I'm not really.
He's not wrong though.
I'm not really sure.
And I wish these men on the podcast were educated as well, because where do you guys think the emerald tablets come from? Like, for those of y'all that don't know what the emerald tablets are, I encourage you to please go look them up. Please go look them up. You're going to see where a lot of your religious beliefs even come from. Where do you, the fact that we had to translate them from a language that we can't even conceptualize today, the fact that there's still scriptures that aren't even translated shows that there was obviously written language, or we wouldn't have shit to be trying to translate, correct?
How to debate that.
But for the most part, the nation civilization of Egypt, they mostly communicated, not even Egypt and Africa, they mostly communicated with telepathy. This is why we have these neurological connections with one another. It's just we fell so far astray from what we're actually capable of that we've resulted into making sounds out of our mouths to communicate with another, and we've created a pattern system for these sounds to understand one another, and that's civilization today.
You love to just latch on to whatever he says, though.
No, listen,
Flakko doesn't
I'm
like
actually
black
African. Listen, I'm actually African.
Flakko doesn't
Damn
like
it,
black people.
right?
Damn it! I just wish it was some more intellect. No, this is no disrespect to Flakko and AD. I just wish it was some more intellectual people on the people with higher intellect. Not even intellect. It's not about intellect. People with more knowledge on the panel discussing these things, because Flakko has absolutely no idea what to say. AD has no recollection of history before America. He has no education on it, it seems like. I'm not saying that like I know, but it just seems like he doesn't. So this is a bad representation, but I'm glad they're at least trying to fight, I guess.
Like, I'm actually African, and he's not wrong.
Do you think there's something like inherently fucked up about African people?
No.
Look at Nick. He think they gotcha. He think this is gotcha moment. Like, goddamn, I want to debate Nick.
Maybe fucked up isn't the words to use here, but
No. Right. Again, if you like take people who are, let's say,
this isn't to take away from Nick's intellect. I mean, Nick's he's a fairly smart guy. It's just when you're smart and you have a level of prejudice or hatred towards something, this is the thing about smart people, and I'm even subject to it too. When you're smart and you don't like something, you can find any way to logically justify it. I swear to God, it's like the whole thing with infidelity. You can logically justify infidelity and say that we're biologically hardwired to spread our seed far and wide, this, that, and the third. When you're a smart person, you can logically defend literally anything, because 9 times out of 10, if you're smarter than the people that you're talking to, they're not going to have anything to rebuttal. You know what I'm saying? When you're a smart person, you can logically defend anything, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. So probably give Nick his props there. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, that doesn't mean he's right.
Lies and bring them here and put less of like an IQ test in front of them. Like they'll probably do poorly on it, right? So, right again,
like Nick is probably fairly has the most knowledge on the panel right now, because I mean, Adam's career is all about interviewing celebrities and degenerate people, and then I don't even know who these other two guys are, so I'm not going to speak too much on them.
Default currently, like we are somewhat be behind the 8 ball, right? Again, like acknowledging those truths, like don't mean it's like it's currently hatred, right? And like he's telling the truth, right? As somebody who's African, I can tell you, we're currently uncivilized.
But even like the fact that he has such an interest in it is obviously part of his overall platform being.
Look at Nick. Look at him, bro. Man.
White people are essentially superior to black people, right?
Do you feel white people are superior to black people?
Still no. Still no. I don't believe that because
I
I
get
think
him that time.
You can tell absolutely 1000% he's lying just based on the way that he just, man, like what? There's no way, like Nick, nobody's mad at you. If you feel like y'all superior, y'all superior. I know we superior, but if you feel like y'all superior, then so be it. I mean, you got to break it down into the fundamental things. You can't even reproduce your own race without your own race. We can reproduce our race with any race because our genes are dominant, and that's just one of the ways.
Well, and I use this as an example. Like Kanye is my hero, and he was my hero before he put on the MAGA.
And one thing with Kanye, like Kanye was not your fucking. Kanye was your hero before he put on the mask. Kanye, like, first off, for him to be anybody's hero is dumb. Like, why would Kanye be your hero? That's how you know Kanye's a fucking celebrity. He's an artist. He hasn't done anything to be anybody's hero except in terms of like achievement in business. If we're speaking in business, then yeah, he could be your hero. But if we're speaking in terms of like ideology, in terms of leadership, Kanye's not one to follow. So that speaks numerous about Nick here. He's literally just using Kanye for clout. Kanye is so fucking famous. Let me say it again. Kanye is so fucking famous that the people around him get famous for just being around him. He's so fucking famous that anybody around him gets somewhat sub-famous. I never heard Nick Fuentes' name ever before he showed up to that dinner with Trump and Kanye. Like, let's be 100. Nobody know who the fuck this guy was since he got canceled. So he's literally just using Kanye as a way to get his own fame back and get back into the public eye and acquire his own following. So let's not feed into the bullshit here, Nick. But I mean, it's a smart chess move for a white guy. He's playing chess, so I'll give him his credit where it's due. But don't sit here and fake like you actually look up to the guy. Like, come on now.
Before we start talking about the media and everything,
What's your favorite album?
The God stuff.
My favorite album's Life of Pablo.
All right, well, favorite song off Life of Pablo.
Talking about Life of Pablo.
30 Hours or Father Stretch My Hands.
Let me get a verse right now.
That is a good album.
Let me get a verse. I give you all the verses. I can name 200 Kanye songs. I know all his albums. I know all the words to it. I have Yeezy in my closet. I have a lot of it because it's expensive, but I'm a fan. And I consider him one of the greatest geniuses alive right now. If he told me to go work for him, I would say, yes, sir, Mr. West. Like I would go.
I think, okay, for those of y'all that don't know, this interview is like earlier before, I think this interview is like a month old. So I think he was already working with Kanye in the backworks. That's why he's glorifying him right now. I think this is just before anybody knew he was working with Kanye, which is smart on Nick's behalf. But come on, man, shut the fuck up.
Definitely seems possible. I would be at all surprised.
Absolutely, yeah, at this point.
He's 24 though, right? Like I feel like
he's a kid.
Right, but like folks kind of forget like he grew up on Kanye,
right?
Yeah,
fair.
I did. Yeah, I grew up on him, and the thing is, it's got nothing to do with interpersonal relationships. I get along with black people.
I mean, if Nick is being genuine though too, then I mean, hey, shout out to him. But I don't think so. But if he is, I mean, shout out to him.
People of other races. I have a lot of friends like that. Because what people always say is if you talk this way, that means that you hate other people, and you hate other people because they're different. They look different. They are different. And I hope, maybe you guys don't believe me, but I hope it's coming across that that's not the basis of my worldview. It never has been. Like I said, I lived my entire life not really believing any of this or understanding any of this. And then I just read books and I looked at some things and I did some thinking on it. And I realized that this is why the world is the way it is. It's because genetics are very real. That's part of it. And that racial identity is salient, meaning it's important to people. It doesn't change the fact. It doesn't mean I treat people differently. It doesn't mean I look down on people or anything like that. I have love for people, but it's just we want to make sense of the world and inequality. Globalization is forcing lots of different kinds of people to live together, and we're having to come face to face with human inequality of all kinds. You go on TikTok and this is one example. You'll scroll through TikTok, and one guy will be famous on TikTok, a guy or a girl, because they're just beautiful. You have like a hot girl, or you have a Chad guy, and then you'll scroll up and you'll see someone famous on TikTok because they're like deformed.
Are you sick of having issues with your webinars, wasting tons of time on troubleshooting with attendees?
Because they're literally like, they've got some issue, or you'll see someone with roaches on their walls. And it's like communications, technology, all these things, is forcing us to come face to face with severe, objective, immovable human inequality. And it's very uncomfortable and disturbing for people because we like to believe that we like to ignore that. We have this sort of self-help culture where it's like, you can be whatever you want. You can overcome anything. And we're being confronted with the fact that that's not true. Some things are just predisposed because of genetics. Some people have a longer lifespan or shorter. Some people be tall or short physically. Die young or die old due to genetic disease factors. Some people be successful or unsuccessful because of their IQ. And this is true between individuals and groups. And it's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. And, ignoring it is not helping anybody. It may make people feel better for a moment, but it's obviously not working.
Again, man, like that. Again, that's definitely true. Now, listen, right? Can we like move on to some more lighthearted stuff?
Sure.
Yo, is Nick Fuentes dating somebody right now?
No, I'm not.
Man,
Who's your celebrity like dream chick?
Nobody care about if Nick is dating. Stay on the topic, bro. This is why these niggas don't get real knowledge. Like, come on.
Dream.
Come
Who?
on.
Megan Thee Stallion.
And shout out to No Jumper, man. Shout out to these fellas for putting on a good broadcast and spreading the knowledge, man. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got no hate towards these guys. I'm just talking shit. Shout out to Adam, shout out to AD, and shout out to Flakko. Shit. Fuck it. Shout out to Nick. It's like, nah.
Not really. I will say though, I say this on my show usually to disarm people. Like, I'm not just into.
Shout out to Sneako too, man.
I want to marry a white girl, but I'm not just into white girls. That's sort of like my sacrifices. My dream girl's actually Asian. She's a conservative. She's in the conservative movement. I don't want to name her because then she's going to get in trouble. But that's my dream girl. But it can never be because she's not white.
Wow.
And I told her
Like
that.
a
I
love
told her
story.
that. What's that?
That's real commitment right there.
A true love story.
That's right. Yeah, Romeo and Juliet.
But so you
just couldn't bag though. Like, just say that, bro. You couldn't game her up. There's no way a man is holding back from his dream girl. You just couldn't bag her. You ain't had a game because you haven't dealt with women your whole life. You're afraid. You know she slept with other men. You know she's gonna look at you in a certain light. You know she's gonna expect certain things that you haven't experienced, that you haven't done, that you can't give her in terms of like communication and just game, just pure game. She knows it's not in you. That's just all it is. Just say that, Nick.
Who do you like Lauren Southern or Tommy Loren? Which one's hotter?
I think Lauren Southern's hotter.
Okay.
Since the plastic surgery, which she got, which is real.
Well, I mean, that helps, you know.
Yeah.
Is Tommy falling off?
Oh, yeah. I haven't even heard of her, man.
Yeah, let's see if we're done here. Let me see
Yeah, I
if
don't know what happened. Well, she got action.
And
Well, right now, Supreme Court says that's one way to see it. The other way to see it is that the existence of condoms creates moral hazard. I think you may have to.
So you think more? You don't think more out of wedlock babies would be bad for society?
Well, I think that that's one way to see it. The other way to see it is that the existence of condoms creates moral hazard. I think you may have more out of wedlock births with condoms because it's this idea of like a false sense of security. If you have condoms, and it's basically there's no penalty, there's no consequence for having sex out of wedlock, so people do it. And then if
Nick has a very valid point there. Oh my God, I'm not even gonna lie. Kind of then incentivize intercourse out of wedlock. But I mean, shit, I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I'm a virgin. You know what I'm saying? If I gotta get me some splah, I'm gonna get me some splah.
If the condom fails or if it doesn't work or whatever, maybe they wouldn't have had sex otherwise.
We got to introduce him to NBA YoungBoy. He got like 10 babies. He's like 22.
Yeah, 23 now.
You would love him.
Yeah, maybe.
AD had a baby at 18, and if condoms weren't around, he probably would have had fucking 10 by now.
Probably 17.
Yeah.
Does late though? 20? Okay.
20 is late to have a child.
In a hood, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Fucking Flakko. All right. Anything else?
No, man. Listen, Nick, I thank you for coming.
Yeah, it was good to have a conversation. Finally, actually break bread. A lot of people didn't want us to have this conversation, but we're about building bridges here. And so,
all right, that's a wrap. Look, man, Go ahead and hit that like and sub for your boy, man. If you enjoyed this content, man, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna come with the commentary a lot. Shout out to them boys. I know Jumper, man. They put on a good podcast. These men work hard in their podcast, and I can't do nothing but respect men that work hard. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Nick too. I guess he just, at least he's firm enough as a man to stand on what he believes in and not really give a fuck about how the public eye sees him. That's the mentality a man should have anyways, but that doesn't mean I agree with half the shit he says, because some of the shit he says is just literally incompetent bullshit. But some of the shit he says too is also, some of it is also facts. So, you know, I'll give a man credit when it's due. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Sneako. I wish he would have came up on here with less of an agenda to push with Nick and more so his own free thought and push back at some of the things that Nick was saying, like the fact of the interracial intercourse, when Sneako's obviously a product of interracial sex. Like, I don't know why he didn't at least try to dig into that conversation, and he just immediately agreed with what the fuck. I mean, not necessarily agreed, but he just was willing to just let Nick speak without even saying something about it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but hey, you know what I'm saying? It was a good ass broadcast. Shout out Sneako. Shout out Adam22. Shout out AD. Shout out AD, man. That boy was fighting for the culture. Shout out AD. Shout out Flakko too, man. He might not have all the knowledge, but the man is trying. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure I mean, you know, it's not really in their niche, so I don't blame him. You know what I'm saying? You only learn what you want to. You know what I'm saying? I don't expect a man to know the whole African history from millennia ago. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. You know, it's Katumwa Live, man. We out. Go ahead and hit that sub, man.